Chapter 151. Gu Junqing carried Jinlian into the small room and locked the door from the inside. After setting Jinlian down, he reached out to wrap his arm around her waist, his gaze filled with amusement. Auntie, oh no, I should call you Sister Yu now. Didn't you get enough last night, Sister Yu? And what mischief are you and Xixue planning this time? She actually allowed you to be alone with me? Jinlian could easily feel the scorching heat and strength of Gu Junqing's body. It was precisely this kind of embrace, this kind of masculinity, that she loved the most. Her current appearance was different from yesterday. Yesterday, she was a mix of innocence and allure, but today she was brimming with the charm of a woman, like a ripe peach that had already been plucked. Xixue is afraid she won't be able to compete with your other admirers in the future, so she wants me to join her. Of course, I went along with my silly sister's plan. Jinlian parted her red lips slightly, brushed aside the hair by her ear, and blinked her long, enchanting eyes. She was growing restless from Gu Junqing's body heat. They had only fooled around yesterday, and now Gu Junqing was about to leave again. She had no idea how long it would be before they could meet again. So, on one hand, she did not want Gu Junqing to leave so soon, and on the other, Xixue had asked for her help, wanting her to ensure Gu Junqing would be too exhausted to fool around outside. Moreover, she thought Gu Junqing's ox-like physique, after such a long rest, must have fully recovered. But she failed to consider the difference in physique between men and women. When an ox is exhausted, it is truly exhausted. If not for Gu Junqing's extraordinary physique, he would not have been able to keep up with Jinlian's recovery speed. Compete with some of my admirers? Gu Junqing raised an eyebrow. Some of his admirers could not even compete with him. What were these two big and small women even thinking? The importance placed on status by those from prominent families still surprised Gu Junqing. But since Xixue was being so generous, he could only go along with her wishes. Sister Jinlian, the sea I navigate is very deep. You two won't be able to handle it, Gu Junqing advised with a smile. After all, he was not even entirely sure which female leads he would need to pursue in the future. But it was clear that the Li family alone could never be the biggest fish in his sea. Jinlian glared at Gu Junqing with her beautiful eyes. She had just learned from Xixue that Gu Junqing was quite the playboy, but she had not expected him to be this unfaithful. Just as she was about to say something, Gu Junqing's lips sealed hers. Jinlian's eyes widened for a moment before growing hazy. Her hands instinctively wrapped around Gu Junqing's waist, her head tilting back as she surrendered to his advances. Gu Junqing lifted Jinlian into his arms, carried her to the small bed in the room, and laid her down. Jinlian felt as though she were a small boat adrift on a stormy, turbulent sea, battered again and again by the waves. The sea seemed to be caught in a tempest, with wave after wave crashing down, as if it would never cease. Jinlian could only endure passively. She was even assaulted by the waves in different ways, from the front, from the back, leaving her as disoriented as if she were seasick, her gaze growing increasingly unfocused. If she had not often practiced yoga in her spare time, which not only built her stamina, but also improved her flexibility, she would have been no match for Gu Junqing at all. Yesterday was only because my body had been neglected for so long, but today I could only remain passive. You scoundrel. Gu Junqing had no choice. After all, Li Xiao was still next door, and if he did not want to be discovered, he had to end the battle quickly. So he had to bring out some real skills. He could not let Jinlian lead him by the nose all the time. Outside the door, Xixue, who was eavesdropping, covered her mouth. It was worth noting that the door was soundproof, yet she could still hear faint sounds. Although she did not know exactly what was happening inside, she could guess what was going on. Xixue felt a bit envious and jealous. After all, she had not experienced it herself yet. But she was genuinely happy for Jinlian. After 30 years of loneliness, she had finally met a Gu Junqing. Meanwhile, Li Xiao, who was wallowing in despair next door, seemed to hear some noise as well, but he had no time to pay attention, lost in his own world of being unable to recover his health. Is there a mouse next door? I should have someone clean it up another day, Li Xiao muttered to himself before sinking back into his own thoughts. As the sudden rain ceased, the waves calmed. Gu Junqing held Jinlian, who had gone limp like mud, tucked her soaked strands of hair behind her ear, and let his fingers slide down her face, pinching her chin to lift it. He gazed at her flushed cheeks. Phew, Sister Yu, how was it? Are you satisfied this time? Gu Junqing's expression carried a hint of meaning and pride. He had finally upheld his dignity as a man. After all, he had been at a slight disadvantage yesterday, but today he had reclaimed some face. Jinlian wanted to say she was not satisfied, but the strange sensations in her body left her speechless. She could only sigh helplessly, her cherry-red lips pressing against Gu Junqing's ear as she whispered softly, then pulled his head into her embrace. Little brother, your sister is very satisfied. Gu Junqing found it hard to resist. This female lead was truly a calamitous beauty, too seductive. Is this what a mature and understanding older sister is like? Compared to a young girl, it certainly had a different feel. If he had to compare, even Yumiajin did not exude the same allure as Jinlian. It was not that Yumiajin was not beautiful or that she fell short of Jinlian, but rather that Jinlian was just too unrestrained. Xixue is still eavesdropping outside the door. Don't you think this is exciting? After resting for a moment, Jinlian spoke near Gu Junqing's ear, her tone a mix of coquettishness and a moan. Is that so? Aren't you excited too? Gu Junqing chuckled. His joy was something others could not imagine. When he stepped out of the room, Gu Junqing's face was expressionless, his demeanor almost like that of a saintly monk who had seen through the nature of Buddha. Form is emptiness. This phrase was indeed the truth. Once everything was emptied, no matter how enchanting or alluring the temptation, it was all emptiness. As soon as Gu Junqing opened the door, Li Xixue let out a yelp and fell to the ground, clearly having been eavesdropping the whole time. Li Xixue felt somewhat awkward under Gu Junqing's half-smiling gaze. Ahem, brother Junqing, how is sister you? Is she all right? Li Xixue's tone was hesitant and uneasy. She had eavesdropped until she could hardly hear Jinlian's voice anymore. It was obvious that by the end, Jinlian was too exhausted to move. It's nothing. Don't you trust your brother Junqing's medical skills? Your brother Junqing's medical skills have always been precise and effective with just one acupuncture. Li Xixue gave a bitter smile. It was indeed a piercingly accurate acupuncture. But was not this treatment method a bit too exhausting? Go help her back to her room. She's been completely subdued by your brother Junqing. Gu Junqing snorted coldly. Wasn't she just a female demon? How could he, the saintly monk Gu, fail to subdue her? Evil creature, I could tell at a glance you weren't human. This was different from last night. Last night, with ample time, Gu Junqing's rhythm was slow and deliberate, gently gathering, slowly twisting, caressing and plucking, first like the rainbow skirt then transitioning to the Xixue. But now it was different. Gu Junqing did not have that much time to spare here. He still had many things left to do. Chapter 152. After listening to Gu Junqing, Li Xixue hurried inside to check on Jinlian. Once she entered the room, Gu Junqing quickly sat down on the sofa. This time, he and Jinlian were equally matched, though Jinlian had already passed out and Gu Junqing was not doing much better. He rubbed his sore lower back and shook his head. He thought to himself that he really could not take it anymore. Should he send Baldi and Xixue to look for some great tonics? Perhaps that stupid tiger on Master's Mountain might be worth considering. Gu Junqing stroked his chin, pondering the feasibility of the idea. After all, tiger bone and other parts were legendary great tonics. He could also take the chance to get revenge, as that stupid tiger had nearly ruined his plans before and caused quite a blow to his image. But how could he subtly hint to his subordinates that their master might be lacking in vitality? He could not just say it outright, for how would he save face then? It really showed how important it was to have subordinates who could understand their master's intentions without being told. It was just like the famous corrupt official Hessian in his previous life, who knew exactly how to read his superior's mind and served Emperor Qianlong so well, though in the end, he was just a pig raised by the emperor, fattened up for his descendants to slaughter. Li Xiao came out and found only Gu Junqing outside, looking somewhat puzzled. Where are Xixue and the others? Li Xiao asked. Sister, you also wanted me to treat some ailments, so I just performed acupuncture on her. Gu Junqing replied without changing his expression. She is already asleep, and Xixue is keeping her company now. Hearing that it was not Li Xixue who was unwell, Li Xiao felt relieved. As for Jinlian, his current condition did not even allow him to glance at her, as one look would make his body struggle to handle the situation. After hearing Gu Junqing say that his condition could not be cured, he truly felt that he had grown old. Li Xiao now focused entirely on nurturing Li Xixue, hoping that if she and Gu Junqing had a child, it might allow the Li family legacy to continue. Well, uncle, I will take my leave now. Gu Junqing stood up with a smile. He suppressed the urge to lean against the wall as he walked. Li Xiao nodded, eager for Gu Junqing to leave quickly. Although Li Xixue's union with Gu Junqing was already set in stone, the longer Gu Junqing stayed, the sooner Li Xixue might offer herself to him. As an old father, he naturally would not allow his daughter to be so easily obtained. Once outside, Baldi, who had been waiting for a long time, hurriedly opened the car door for Gu Junqing. He attentively opened and closed the door for him. Young master, could I ask you for a favor? Baldi turned around with an ingratiating smile, his fleshy face creasing like a chrysanthemum. Gu Junqing could not bear to look, feeling somewhat helpless, and could only nod for him to speak first. Young master, could you let me tell that Su Chen too? Lately, many of my brothers have gotten married, and I would also like to find a wife. Baldi chuckled, clearly yearning for a wife to care for him at home. Gu Junqing raised an eyebrow. Then you are out of luck. Su Chen does not have that kind of luck anymore, and even if you tail him, it is hopeless. Gu Junqing shook his head. He had already stripped Su Chen of his protagonist status, leaving none of the original luck that allowed him to rescue beauties. However, there is one task I can assign you. If you do it well, I can find you a wife. Gu Junqing said meaningfully. Baldi was initially disappointed when he heard that following Su Chen was no longer effective. But upon hearing Gu Junqing's next words, he became overjoyed and quickly responded. What is it, young master? I will do anything within my capabilities. Gather some brothers and go to a certain location on Juner Mountain to hunt a great worm. I plan to gift it to my father. Gu Junqing smiled. Hunting tigers was illegal in his original world, but not in this one. Of course, young master, Baldi replied. Baldi was extremely happy, as now he would have a wife too. As for the difficulty of hunting a great worm, although quite challenging, it would be relatively easy with enough people and firepower. Gu Junqing wanted to applaud his own cleverness for quietly assigning the task. Young master, I have not heard that the master needs a tiger for anything. Could it be that young master wants to nourish his health? Haha. Baldi laughed twice at what he thought was a funny joke, but when Gu Junqing remained silent, he glanced at him through the rearview mirror. He found Gu Junqing looking at him with intense, piercing kindness, a smile on his face. Baldi fell silent, sweating profusely, sitting upright, and driving seriously. Gu Junqing was considering how best to deal with Baldi. Should I just silence him permanently? Gu Junqing thought with a smile, his face full of intense amiability. Baldi, stop shaking and drive properly. Yes, yes, Baldi stammered. Baldi looked miserable, regretting his joke as he had apparently touched a nerve with Gu Junqing. Might as well enjoy some good food while I still can. Of course, these were just jokes. Gu Junqing would not actually eliminate such a loyal subordinate over such a small matter, though some punishment was inevitable. A few days later, Gu Junqing was punishing Baldi for his loose tongue. Young master, can I not go to North Africa? I do not want a wife anymore. Baldi clung to the helicopter door with a miserable expression. Gu Junqing raised an eyebrow. What is this? Did you not really want a wife? I have arranged a good marriage for you, and her status is much higher than yours. This time, Baldi was nearly in tears. You did not mention she is a North African female chieftain. Xixue, help him onto the plane. Gu Junqing snorted coldly, ordering the nearly hysterical Xixue beside him. Yes, young master. Following orders, Xixue directly pushed Baldi onto the aircraft. Baldi, remember to come back with a fat, healthy son. Who told you to speak out of turn? Last time you provoked the young master, and got away with it. I never thought you would dare bother him again. Xixue pushed while verbally attacking Baldi, almost dying of laughter at Baldi's predicament. And so Baldi was sent to North Africa by Gu Junqing, successfully married off to a female tribe leader. Baldi nearly regretted it to death, as just one careless comment had earned him this arrangement from Gu Junqing. However, Gu Junqing ultimately considered his years of service, and found him a wife known as the North African Black Pearl. She was quite dark-skinned and attractive, which greatly alleviated Baldi's depression. But all this came later. Chapter 153. After returning to the Gu family, Gu Junqing found his father, Gu Junqing, to explain the situation regarding the Li family. Since Gu Junqing took power, Gu Junqing had been living an increasingly leisurely life at home. He spent his days tending to flowers and playing with birds in the company of Xie Ying. Though not particularly old, his desire for power was not deep. It was far happier to spend the rest of his life easily with Xie Ying. Now that his son was sensible and gradually taking over the heavy responsibilities, he was extremely pleased. Although when discussing matters with the heads of the other three great families, Gu Junqing would always complain about his son being unfilial for taking away his power. In reality, he was just showing off about having a good son, who could relieve him of his heavy burdens. While the heads of the other three families outwardly expressed sympathy, inwardly they were already cursing. They had long been immensely envious of Gu Junqing's current lifestyle. Being able to travel, raise dogs, and play with cats without managing a large family was a dream. Meanwhile, they still had to bear the weight of their family's destiny. They could not relax in the slightest, because they did not have an heir like Gu Junqing. The burdens those in high positions must bear are beyond what ordinary people can imagine. Even the ingenious Prime Minister Jinlian had to rise early and retire late, exhausting all his mental resources. Could Prime Minister Xixue not have known that continuing like this would lead to mental exhaustion and a shortened lifespan? He knew, but he did not dare to let go. What he carried was an entire nation. What he bore was the banner of restoring the Han dynasty. What he upheld was the late emperor's trust. It was a heavy responsibility that could crush a person. Therefore, regarding Gu Junqing's constant boasting, the other three family heads appeared to smile happily while inwardly cursing. Although Gu Junqing had transferred almost all authority to Gu Junqing, he still had to temporarily assume the position when his son was absent. Some specific matters still required his attention as the father. This included what Gu Junqing wanted to discuss now. You still want to reduce the shares of some senior members of the Gu family? Gu Junqing pondered for a moment. After hearing what Gu Junqing said about the Li family, he already knew what his son was going to say. Correct. The Li family's situation serves as a warning for our Gu family. I do not believe there are fewer dirty deeds among our senior members. Gu Junqing shook his head. But this way, even if the family elders are satisfied with your leadership, they will oppose you for touching their benefits. Gu Junqing frowned, feeling that Gu Junqing's approach might be too radical. Father, I do not mean to directly strip them of their power, but to gradually delegate their authority to the younger generation. Only then can the Gu family remain vibrant. Moreover, if our Gu family wants to expand beyond Luodu, such actions are essential. Reform inevitably comes with bloodshed. What I need is a unified Gu family, not one where each acts independently. The Gu family must prioritize my commands. Gu Junqing looked directly at his father, expressing some of his requirements and ambitions. What he wanted was an unshakable Gu family. All right, it is all up to you. I will discuss this with the others. Gu Junqing sighed helplessly. Whatever his son wanted to do, he should just go ahead boldly. After all, he himself would take care of playing the villain. Gu Junqing's image within the Gu family must remain radiant, capable of inspiring the entire family. Moreover, father, if the Gu family unifies all major and minor forces in Luodu, only the infusion of young blood can bring fresh vitality. Aging and decay will inevitably lead to decline and downfall. Gu Junqing's past life experiences had taught him that reform was the only path to prosperity. Previously, our actions have been subtle and gradual. Why have you suddenly decided to take such radical steps? Is there some difficulty? Gu Junqing was puzzled, his eyes filled with concern. They had long been worried about the Gu family's development. They originally planned to implement changes slowly, like boiling a frog in warm water. Unexpectedly, Gu Junqing had now changed his mind. He intended to cut through the tangled mess swiftly and resolve all the hidden dangers at once. Father, we already control over 30% of the Li family's shares. The entire landscape of Luodu is about to change. Previously, our Gu family and the other three great families maintained a relative balance of power, keeping each other in check. But now it is different. Our Gu family is about to become dominant, and we will face even greater challenges. After speaking, Gu Junqing picked up his teacup, waiting for his father's response. What you say is correct, but the four great families of Luodu have always been interconnected. Whenever external forces tried to enter Luodu to take a share, they would be jointly driven out. Now, if our Gu family wants to dominate all of Luodu, it is hard to say whether they will agree or not. Gu Junqing pondered his son's words. He furrowed his brow, sat on the sofa, and lightly tapped the table with his fingers. Because they were now considering whether the entire power structure of Luodu would shift due to the changes in their Gu family. Those who do not plan for the long term cannot manage the immediate. Those who do not consider the whole cannot manage the parts. Don't worry, father. You do not need to concern yourself with the rest. I will handle it, Gu Junqing said confidently. Since the Li family was already in their grasp, would the other two families be far behind? Moreover, Gu Junqing's strength was now far greater than before. He no longer needed to hesitate and second-guess his actions as he once did. It could be said that no force in Luodu could stand in the way of the Gu family's progress. However, I will soon be leaving for university. Resolving some hidden dangers now can pave the way for the Gu family's expansion. After speaking, Gu Junqing felt somewhat embarrassed. If he went away to study, the affairs of the Gu family would inevitably fall back on Gu Junqing to manage. Gu Junqing sighed. He had always doted on this son, and had no choice but to comply with Gu Junqing's wishes in everything. Oh, by the way, your maternal grandfather's family said you have not visited them in a long time. They want you to stay with them for a few days after your college entrance exams. Gu Junqing suddenly remembered something and quickly relayed the message to Gu Junqing. Gu Junqing raised an eyebrow. He had long been curious about his maternal grandfather's family. After all, in the book about Lin Tian, even a fully developed Lin Tian in the later stages could not do much against the Xia family. This alone showed that the Xia family's strength should not be underestimated. Keep in mind, this was a fully developed child of destiny, not the current Lin Tian, who was enjoying tough love in prison. All right, I understand. After saying this, Gu Junqing returned to school for classes. Gu Junqing sighed. He had originally planned to gradually hand over his responsibilities to Gu Junqing and retire from managing affairs. He had already made travel plans with Xie Ying to go abroad. Unexpectedly, he now had to return to the Gu family. It seemed their trip would have to be postponed. After discussing some matters with Gu Junqing returned to school. Chapter 154. Gu Junqing went to Yumiajin's office first, as he needed to confirm the competition time. This was related to his chance to target the next male lead. Su Chen had already been stripped of his potential. If he did not start targeting the next one soon, he would feel unaccustomed to the inactivity. It had been a long time since any villain points arrived. Gu Junqing missed the days when they flowed in like gold. As for Zhang Feiyu, Gu Junqing had no intention of wasting time. For a protagonist with a system, elimination was the only path. The uncertainty was too high. They could grow powerful in the blink of an eye. If Zhang Feiyu had not been crippled and constantly hoarding his points, his current strength would be significant. Gu Junqing did not plan to let him linger for long. Teacher Yu, has the time for the Tsinghua University admission competition been confirmed? Gu Junqing entered the office as if it were his own home. After pushing the door open and locking it, he lay down on the small bed she had arranged. Yumiajin sighed. Gu Junqing was becoming increasingly unrestrained in front of her. He showed none of the dignity he displayed to others. Let me check. Yumiajin opened the schedule and examined it. There are about 5 days and 3 hours left. Gu Junqing chuckled. Teacher Yu, as expected of a math teacher. So precise. Yes, so I always look forward to your visits. Yumiajin said wistfully, her tone carrying resentment. Whenever Gu Junqing came, it was either to ask questions or engage in that activity. The timing was never consistent. Sometimes she would see him several times a day, other times she would not see him for a month. Did he not know she missed him? Gu Junqing finally realized Yumiajin had been waiting for him. Seeing her resentful expression, he sat up and hugged her. I have been busy, have I not? How about I take you out to have fun on the day of the exam? Gu Junqing held her, kissing her repeatedly to comfort her. Yumiajin's resentment turned to joy. She had never gone out with Gu Junqing before. Their intimate moments always happened within this office. Seeing that Yumiajin was happy, Gu Junqing breathed a sigh of relief. He had planned to use Dr. Gu's methods if words failed. He would have used acupuncture to treat the depths of Yumiajin's heart. But we need to go somewhere far away. If people see our relationship, you will be teased. Gu Junqing tapped Yumiajin's nose tip, making her extremely shy. She did not know why, but even though she was older, she felt like a young girl in front of him. She only wanted to nestle in his embrace and bask in his affection. She was becoming unable to live without Gu Junqing. That was why she had hinted today that she wanted to experience a date. She wanted to feel the emotions of a girl in love. She was tired of their constant physical exchanges. Relationships usually progressed from holding hands and dating to intimate union. But she and Gu Junqing had skipped to the final stage. Now she wanted to make up for those earlier steps. Yu Miajin's eyes filled with affection. She wrapped her arms around Gu Junqing's neck and kissed him. Gu Junqing raised an eyebrow. He was usually the one who took the lead, so he could not let her be active. Just as he was about to carry her to the bed, his sore lower back reminded him of his depleted reserves. His expression stiffened slightly. These past few days, he had exhausted all his ammunition. He needed to recover his energy before he could charge into battle again. He reluctantly responded to Yu Miajin's enthusiasm. Yu Miajin was puzzled. Normally, Gu Junqing would be impulsive by now. Why was he acting like a saint? She had dignity as a teacher, and could not say it directly. She could only hint indirectly. Junqing, sitting on the chair like this is tiring. Shall we go lie down on the small bed? Miao Jin, I feel that we cannot do this every time. You cannot always ask me for this. I love you in my heart, and I do not want to tarnish you here. Let us save it for when we are on a date. Such a beautiful moment should be reserved for the most beautiful you. I hope what we have is eternal, not just momentary pleasure. Gu Junqing's eyes were filled with affection as he held her face. He spoke with righteous conviction. He had no choice. He was afraid Yu Miajin would notice his legs were trembling. These words successfully made Yu Miajin blush. Her eyes were nearly brimming with tears. She never expected Gu Junqing to be so affectionate. She was immensely moved. Yet, she recalled that it was always Gu Junqing who demanded it. He had even made her take the initiative. Hearing him say he loved her, she cast all doubts aside. Sweetness filled her heart. She felt as if pink heart bubbles were continuously rising inside her. Little did she know that Gu Junqing was sweating bullets. She was deeply moved, but Gu Junqing dared not move a muscle. Although he could still hold up a battle, he could not exhaust all his ammunition. The feeling of depleted reserves is something every man understands. Otherwise, men would not joke that a period is a roadblock before marriage, but a savior after. While others might resort to wolfberries in a thermos out of necessity, Gu Junqing felt he needed to take action. Things like tiger bone soup should be on the agenda. Gu Junqing swore that the next time he went to see Jinlian, he would make thorough preparations. How else could he regain face in front of the other female leads? All right, teacher Yu, I should head back to class now. The class bell rang, and Gu Junqing's eyes lit up. He set Yu Miajin down and stood up, ready to take his leave. Yu Miajin did not react with her usual demeanor. She was still immersed in her emotions. The tenderness in her eyes seemed about to overflow and drown Gu Junqing. This made Gu Junqing feel relieved that she was not insisting on continuing. Miao Jin, see how much I love you. I love you so much I can remain unmoved with you in my arms. Are you not reassured now? I do not seek you out just for that one thing. Gu Junqing quickly walked out of the office. He was afraid that if he teased her more, he would find himself in a difficult position. Chapter 155. After leaving Yu Miajin's office, Gu Junqing couldn't help but give himself a mental pat on the back for his quick thinking. Suppressing dopamine secretion with hormones indeed proved to be an effective method. As Gu Junqing walked while deep in thought, he appeared to be pondering some complex mathematical problem. This prompted waves of admiration from passing students. Their school genius was already so brilliant, yet he still worked this hard. It truly made them feel they needed to redouble their own efforts. Little did Gu Junqing know that his ordinary contemplation would spark a study frenzy among the students. When Gu Junqing returned to the classroom, Luo Ningyu and Mirongwen exchanged glances upon seeing him enter before quickly rushing over to inquire about Li Xixue's situation. After all, Li Xixue had gone home alone with Gu Junqing yesterday. This had made Mirongwen and Luo Ningyu quite anxious, worried that Gu Junqing might have been seduced by Li Xixue. But unexpectedly, news emerged from the Li family the next day about the Gu and Li families joining forces in a powerful alliance. They had discovered this news after staying up all night waiting, though it was quickly taken down, clearly indicating some influential intervention. Gu Junqing felt overwhelmed under their intense gazes. The two girls exchanged another look and began performing their act. Qing, why are you still coming to see us? Mirongwen covered her face as if crying. Yes, isn't the alliance between your two great families wonderful? Luo Ningyu also began her performance. Gu Junqing froze for a moment. He wondered what kind of script this was. Had he been disconnected from the world? He couldn't quite follow what was happening. Nevertheless, Gu Junqing recalled the Kaiyang Yao dramas from his past life. That was arranged by her father. I don't agree with it, Gu Junqing explained with seemingly genuine anxiety, showing no signs of acting. Seeing Gu Junqing playing along, Mirongwen and Luo Ningyu almost broke character. But fortunately they had rehearsed beforehand. With your two families united, your enterprises will surely reach new heights. Mirongwen turned her face away, feigning disappointment. Wan, don't you understand? My heart belongs only to you two, Gu Junqing said affectionately as he held their hands, his moving emotions seemingly overflowing. Now it was Luo Ningyu's turn to continue the act. I won't listen, I won't listen, I won't listen. Both Luo Ningyu and Mirongwen simultaneously pulled their hands away from Gu Junqing, covering their ears while shaking their heads. If I'm lying to you, may I be struck by lightning. Gu Junqing forcefully grasped both girls' hands and declared with deep emotion. Mirongwen and Luo Ningyu were barely keeping themselves from laughing. They never expected Gu Junqing to indulge their playful acting, but since Gu Junqing was willing to play along, they naturally would continue. Each girl placed a hand over Gu Junqing's mouth. We don't want you making such serious vows. We believe you, they said. The trio gazed deeply into each other's eyes, but unfortunately, the weather didn't cooperate. Right after Gu Junqing mentioned being struck by lightning, the weather suddenly changed, dark clouds gathered. Not only did a sudden downpour begin, but thunder also rumbled loudly. This made Gu Junqing lose his composure, his expression turning somewhat unpleasant. Seeing this, Mirongwan and Luodu doubled over with laughter. Even heaven would play along so perfectly. You two girls, have you been watching too many cheesy romance dramas? Gu Junqing snorted. Humph, this is the rich family drama we watched last night. Yeah, the male lead in it didn't like the wealthy girl he was arranged to marry, but instead fell for an ordinary Cinderella from outside, and they even eloped in the end. Mirongwan looked over with sparkling eyes. The gazes and words of Mirongwan and Luodu seemed to be hinting at something to Gu Junqing, shooting toward him like arrows. Gu Junqing rubbed his forehead. These two girls' thoughts were so convoluted he could hardly keep up with their train of thought. He gave both of them a light flick on the forehead. Though he didn't use much force, he couldn't bring himself to be too harsh. Ouch, that hurts. Why do you always like to flick us? Luodu pouted aggrievedly, and Mirongwan also looked aggrieved. It's because you two little gossipmongers don't focus on your studies, always letting your minds wander all day long. Humph, it's because you're getting engaged to someone without telling us. I saw it yesterday, even though you quickly made it disappear. Luodu snorted coldly, her expression clearly saying she would throw a tantrum if he didn't explain properly. Gu Junqing smiled helplessly, so they were just jealous. With no other choice, Gu Junqing briefly explained what he could share about the matters with the Li family, keeping it as concise and clear as possible. This helped Mirongwan and Luodu understand the situation better, though they still looked quite jealous. Noticing that no other classmates were paying attention to them anymore, as everyone was busy with their own studies, Luodu's eyes sparkled mischievously, as she said coyly, "Then you should kiss both of us as punishment." Mirongwan also nodded shyly, agreeing with Luodu's wonderful idea. Gu Junqing looked at the two girls' bright eyes fixed on him, and raised an eyebrow. Wasn't this more like a reward than punishment? Of course he would satisfy them. So Gu Junqing did as Luodu suggested, kissing them until their fair cheeks began to flush pink and their eyes grew hazy. Only then were Mirongwan and Luodu satisfied. Brother Junqing, is what you said earlier true? Will Li Xixue not be coming to school for a long time? Luodu asked after Gu Junqing finished kissing them. Gu Junqing nodded. Xixue needs to take charge of her family's affairs. She has a lot to handle and probably won't have time to come to school. Surprisingly, both Luodu and Mirongwan looked somewhat disappointed. When Gu Junqing wasn't around, they had actually developed quite a good relationship with Li Xixue. Although they still occasionally exchanged verbal sparring and sarcastic remarks, it was much better than how they acted when Gu Junqing was present. They could be friends, but they wouldn't share their man. That's why they looked disappointed when they heard that Li Xixue might not come to school anymore. Alright, it's not a big deal. You'll have to work in the future too, she's just starting earlier. Besides, she can still come visit you if she wants. There's another sister helping her manage things too. Gu Junqing comforted the two girls, suddenly remembering that little temptress Jinlian for some reason, and mentioned her casually. As soon as he finished speaking, he noticed the two girls looking at him strangely. Gu Junqing quickly coughed. Ahem, what's wrong? Nothing, it's just that we feel like your relationship with that sister you mentioned might not be entirely proper. Mirongwan's eyes held a hint of suspicion, feeling that Gu Junqing's expression had become somewhat dreamy when he mentioned sister. Gu Junqing was speechless. What are you sensing with? I clearly didn't say anything. A woman's intuition. Luodu replied confidently, and she also felt something was off. Chapter 156. Gu Junqing could only remain speechless at the uncanny sixth sense women possessed. He had not expected these two girls to actually guess correctly, but he was not foolish enough to readily admit it. How could that be? She is Xixue's dear sister, and also my dear sister. He spoke with a serious expression, presenting himself as an upright gentleman. There is no improper relationship between us. It is completely proper. Moreover, I only met Xixue's sister for the first time yesterday. She is already in her 30s, so do not overthink things. The two girls looked at him with some suspicion, but they remembered this was indeed his first meeting with her. Although they fully believed in Gu Junqing's charm, making someone shy and adding them to his harem in just one day seemed impossible. Furthermore, Gu Junqing had explained that this sister was already over 30, clearly mismatched with the recently adult Gu Junqing. So they temporarily believed Gu Junqing's words, setting their minds at ease and stopping their teasing. After all, Li Xixue would not be coming for a long time, meaning they could have Gu Junqing all to themselves. This made Mirongwan and Luodu quite happy. But what they had not heard was the saying, if the woman is 3 years older, you will strike gold. If she is 30 years older, she will give you a kingdom. If she is 3,000 years older, you will ascend to immortality. Clearly, age was not an issue for Gu Junqing. While a gap of over 10 years might seem significant now, from a future perspective it might not matter at all. Gu Junqing had long discovered some cultivation-related items in the system. In the future, he was destined to enter the cultivation era, where a mere 20 or 30-year age difference would be negligible. In the future, it might become, if she is 3 billion years older, she will create heaven and earth. If she is 300 billion years older, she will unite the entire galaxy. Yumiajin entered the classroom and began the lesson, forcing Mirongwan and Luodu to turn around and return to their seats. Gu Junqing's seat was by the window in the back row. After all, the back row by the window is the king's domain. To make it easier to interact with Gu Junqing, Luodu and Mirongwon had specifically chosen seats in the row in front of him. Gu Junqing smiled as he watched the two girls' dark hair cascading over their shoulders, occasionally catching glimpses of their playful earlobes peeking through the strands. This kind of youthful, student romance gave him a uniquely different feeling. It was precisely at this age that such pure and beautiful emotions could exist, not for fame or fortune, not for worldly glory, but purely for that special person in their hearts, willing to act cute and silly just to please their beloved, not considering disparities in family or social background. It was simply pure affection. Gu Junqing understood why they acted this way, why they worried. Ultimately, it came from deep insecurity, viewing Gu Junqing as the bright moon in the sky while they themselves were humble dust. This was a common ailment of student-era romance. There was nothing wrong with youthful emotions. This was how one could witness the most beautiful feelings, like the love between ordinary middle-aged couples, which revolved around daily necessities and children's education. As for affairs, a single kiss might give them nightmares for several nights. As for love in old age, well, that would be like an old lady crawling into bed, enough to make grandpa laugh. Young women like Mirongwon and Luodu would only subtly remind Gu Junqing not to forget them and not to flirt around, while women like Jinlian and Jinlian were thinking about how to drain Gu Junqing dry, acting like juice extractors to leave him with no energy to chase other girls. Women of different ages have different thoughts, each with their own strengths and weaknesses. Regardless of the approach, Gu Junqing was the only one enjoying himself. Gu Junqing admired Jinlian's signature black stockings. Though he could not physically tear them today, given his track record, he had already torn more than one pair of her stockings. Gu Junqing's burning gaze had long stirred Jinlian's heart. Suppressing her shyness, she continued teaching. Eventually unable to bear it, she tapped the desk. To celebrate everyone's excellent results this time, I would like to invite Gu Junqing to come up and give a lecture. Let us give him a round of applause. Jinlian snorted. Although Gu Junqing's words in the office had moved her, upon second thought, she realized he simply was not planning to give it to her now. What did he mean by waiting a few days for love? Was what he did before not love? Jinlian, already stirred up by Gu Junqing and feeling unusual physical sensations, had not expected him to leave her behind and return to class. Now he was looking at her with that gaze. She had to teach him a lesson. Hearing Jinlian's words, feeling the stares of his classmates, and seeing the smug expressions of Mirongwon and Luodu in front, Gu Junqing felt helpless. His teaching skills might not be strong, but his nurturing abilities were exceptional. Gu Junqing regretted not squeezing out a little more earlier. If he had satisfied Jinlian, she would not have minded his gaze. It seemed that hormones overpowering dopamine was only temporary. For long-term results, Gu Junqing would have to put in the physical effort. But it was too late for regrets. Gu Junqing had no choice but to go up and lecture. As Jinlian passed by him, she whispered, "If you do not properly hand over public grain next time, I will make you lecture every day." What could Gu Junqing say? This time, he was the one who had stirred Jinlian's passionate heart, but failed to extinguish it completely. It was his fault, so he had to accept it. The classmates were thrilled to see Gu Junqing on stage again. During his first lecture, they had been skeptical, but Gu Junqing's lessons not only accurately predicted exam topics, but also helped them understand entire question types through analogies. The improvement in most students' math scores was thanks to Gu Junqing's previous lecture, which was why Jinlian used making him give a lecture as punishment. Thus, Gu Junqing was easily controlled by Jinlian. Just one missed public grain delivery resulted in lecture punishment. Young women like Mirongwon and Luodu still had much to learn. No wonder menstruation was called the savior after marriage. When you really could not deliver, it could save your life. Finally, after class ended, Jinlian let Gu Junqing off the hook and allowed him to step down. Thank you to Gu Junqing for today's lecture. If there is another opportunity, I will have him deliver another wonderful lesson for everyone. Jinlian smiled and had the students applaud for Gu Junqing. Gu Junqing smiled back, his gaze toward Jinlian carrying a hint of danger. Still hoping for a next time? Next time, I will show you why Dr. Gu always hits the mark with his acupuncture, using profound knowledge to make you unable to attend class. Gu Junqing was already contemplating how to deal with Jinlian. If he did not make sure she could not get out of bed next time, he would not bear the surname Gu. Chapter 157. After school, as Gu Junqing was about to escort Mirongwon and Luodu home, he noticed a group of people, whose eyes lit up upon seeing him. They began walking in his direction. Gu Junqing glanced at Mirongwon beside him, feeling as if a plotline had been triggered. Brother Gu, you have to stand up for us." The leader was a young man dressed like a student, but with his hair dyed in 6 colors and studs pierced in his ears. He clearly did not look like a studious, well-behaved student. His name was Xixue, a relative of Gu Junqing's. As a child, he used to come to Gu Junqing every day to play, and had become one of Gu Junqing's lackeys at school. Since Gu Junqing was the main antagonist, Xixue naturally played the role of the minor henchman under the main villain. Gu Junqing still had vivid memories of this guy. When they were kids, Xixue once approached the young Gu Junqing and said, "Brother Gu, can you lend me some money?" "What is wrong? Won't your parents give you any?" The young Xixue replied, "Yeah, I want to dye my hair, but my parents won't let me." I want to dye it green. As he spoke, Wei Suo gestured toward his hair with a smug and somewhat lecherous expression. He was clearly extremely pleased with his own taste. The memory was so striking that Gu Junqing could not forget it even if he tried. Looking at Wei Suo's six-colored hair now, Gu Junqing could not help but ponder, had his taste actually improved somewhat? What is going on with you? Gu Junqing raised an eyebrow. Usually, unless he had specific instructions, Wei Suo rarely came to find him. Moreover, since Wei Suo was known as Gu Junqing's relative, although he had not committed every evil deed imaginable, his habit of stirring up trouble had earned him the disdain of many. People often wondered how someone as dignified and upright as Gu Junqing could have such an annoying relative. However, Gu Junqing had intentionally sent him out, otherwise, how could he provoke the protagonist? After all, in some novels, these antagonists' lackeys always seemed to find the female lead faster than the protagonist himself. They always managed to get to the female lead first, and just as they were about to start harassing her, the protagonist would show up. When it came to finding the female lead and provoking the protagonist, these underlings certainly had remarkable skills. Besides, if these characters were not written as thoroughly unlikable, how could the protagonist's strength and heroism be fully highlighted? Brother Gu, some of my lackeys saw a guy who looked like a man, but dressed like a woman, even secretly wearing something like stockings. They were so disgusted they almost threw up, so they went and mocked him for being effeminate. But it was like they hit a nerve. The guy went crazy and beat my lackeys so badly they ended up in the hospital. Wei Suo wailed to Gu Junqing. Then why did you bring so many people here to find me? Gu Junqing asked helplessly. Was it really necessary to bother him with such a trivial matter? But it's no use. That guy's martial arts skills are too strong. My lackeys were taken down almost instantly, like something out of a wuxia drama. His speed was terrifying. Even with this many people, we still couldn't beat him. I was just being impulsive and showing off, saying I'd call someone to fight him and set up a meeting spot. I never thought he'd actually agree. Wei Suo's face was full of despair. Clearly, the threat posed by that man was too great, and Wei Suo had no confidence in handling it. Gu Junqing raised an eyebrow. As expected of the lackey he had trained, he even knew how to assess someone's fighting skills. Like some minor antagonists, underlings who charge at the protagonist upon sight, never considering whether they are just delivering experience points. Gu Junqing pondered for a moment, a faint smile playing on his lips. He knew who it was. It could only be the protagonist Zhang Feiyu. It had been a while since he last sheared wool from this protagonist, and he wondered how Zhang was recovering now. However, the bragging points required to exchange for an elixir that could restore masculine abilities must be substantial. Presumably, Zhang had not succeeded in exchanging for it yet, and was still accumulating points. Otherwise, Zhang would not still appear so effeminate. Gu Junqing patted Wei Suo's shoulder. The ability to provoke protagonists was indeed remarkable. Then why come to me? You can report this directly to the teacher, and even call the police while you're at it. Gu Junqing shook his head and offered Wei Suo a suggestion. What? Brother Gu, you can't be serious. If I report this to the police and tell the teacher, where would I put my dignity? Wei Suo was shocked upon hearing Gu Junqing's words. What, you're not going to listen to me now? Gu Junqing frowned. I'll listen. I'll call the police, alright? Wei Suo had been afraid of Gu Junqing's frown since childhood. Whenever Gu Junqing frowned, he always felt like he was about to be beaten to death by him. Seeing Wei Suo's somewhat aggrieved expression, Gu Junqing felt utterly speechless. He kicked Wei Suo. Alright, if you manage to get him detained for a few days, I'll reward you with 100,000 yuan. Gu Junqing patted Wei Suo's shoulder again. After all, they were somewhat related, and Wei Suo's current troublemaking was partly under Gu Junqing's instructions. Protagonists and heroines do not just appear when you want them to. They need to be gradually discovered by Gu Junqing. Perhaps one day, these people might actually help Gu Junqing find a male or female protagonist, making this move worthwhile. Hearing about the reward, Wei Suo finally perked up. He immediately made the call. Hello, is this the law enforcement? I want to report someone. He beat up many of my people. The law enforcement side picked up, and a capable yet exceptionally charming female voice came through. Hello, this is the Luodu Hall of Law Enforcement. May I have your location, please? Hearing it was a woman's voice on the other end, Wei Suo's eyes lit up, almost reverting to his usual beastly nature. Fortunately, he suddenly remembered this was on Gu Junqing's orders, and did not dare act recklessly. He truthfully explained the entire incident. As for the other party being a law enforcer, Wei Suo did not care. He was Gu Junqing's relative, so his status was not simple either. Even a gatekeeper of a prime minister holds some prestige. His usual favorite pastime was throwing his weight around, which was also under Gu Junqing's instructions. If he got beaten up, it meant the person Gu Junqing was looking for had appeared. Protagonists love showing off by taking down such people. You could say Wei Suo was like bait Gu Junqing dangled for the protagonist, waiting to see if they would take it. However, Gu Junqing had imposed many restrictions on Wei Suo, preventing him from going too far. Wei Suo had no choice but to follow Gu Junqing's orders. After all, if these minor villains did everything, what would be left for the main villain to do? Understood. Our Hall of Law Enforcement has received the report. Please wait where you are. The law enforcer hung up after these final words, clearly preparing to dispatch. Hee, Brother Gu, I've made the call. Wei Suo grinned somewhat lecherously. Chapter 158. Wei Suo shifted the topic to Mirongwan and Luo Ningyu. He asked, oh, by the way, Why hasn't Brother Gu introduced these two young sisters-in-law? He had noticed the two stunning beauties accompanying Gu Junqing long ago. With Gu Junqing present, he had not dared to ask or comment. Only after discussing Zhang Feiyu did he think to have Gu Junqing introduce them. Mirongwan and Luo Ningyu stood beside Gu Junqing, holding hands, and blushed faintly when Wei Suo called them young sisters-in-law. Initially, their impression of Wei Suo was not great. His bizarre appearance and alternative fashion sense left them puzzled about how Gu Junqing could have such an eccentric relative. However, hearing Wei Suo address them as sisters-in-law improved their opinion of him slightly. Gu Junqing shot him a glance, his friendly gaze striking Wei Suo like an icy blast. He told him, "What you need to know, you will know. What you do not need to know, you had better not ask. Hurry up and get ready. The law enforcers will not settle unless they see you suffer heavy losses." Wei Suo immediately shut his mouth and dared not inquire further. He had wanted to ask if they were Gu Junqing's girlfriends, hoping to see if there might be a chance for himself. Judging by his brother Gu's reaction, it was likely true, so he did not dare ask any more questions. He did not even dare glance at them again. Quickly, he gathered his lackeys and headed to the pre-arranged spot to meet Zhang Feiyu. Mirongwan and Luo Ningyu were amused by Wei Suo's reaction. They pulled Gu Junqing's hand and got into the car. They found Gu Junqing's possessiveness, not allowing others to look at them, extremely handsome. Mirongwan used to despise Gu Junqing's overbearing attitude, forbidding her from talking to other men. Now that she had fallen for him, she found herself liking this side of him more and more. Ding. Host has stirred the heart of female lead Mirongwan. Reward. 2,000 villain points. Many things change depending on perspective. Love me, love my dog. Hate me, hate my dog. It is all the same. Mirongwan and Luo Ningyu each rewarded Gu Junqing with a sweet kiss. This surprised Gu Junqing, as he had simply found Wei Suo's lingering presence annoying, and told him to hurry up. Unexpectedly, it led to this bonus, making them think he was jealous and had chased Wei Suo away. "Let's go. You two sit in the back. I will drive and check on their situation." After Gu Junqing said this, the two women reluctantly let go of his arm. Gu Junqing's master, Xixue, was recuperating from her injuries when someone suddenly delivered 2 letters up the mountain. One was from an unknown sender. The other was from Gu Junqing, marked with a heart, and the note, "For my master's eyes only." Gu Junqing often wrote letters to flirt with Xixue, since stirring a female lead's heart earned him villain points. Though he could call, for a woman like Xixue, letters were clearly the best way to charm her. Writing letters was far more amusing. Xixue opened Gu Junqing's letter first, which was filled with lavish prose expressing his longing for her. The general idea was that Gu Junqing missed Xixue so much that he could not sleep through the night. He even said something about regretting that his whip could not reach far enough to comfort his master's loneliness and emptiness when she was alone. After reading it, Xixue spat in disdain. This ungrateful disciple, does he think I do not know what the whip cannot reach far enough means? However, the smile on her face betrayed her, as she clearly missed Gu Junqing deeply as well. After finishing that letter, Xixue opened another one. "Respectfully to Master Zhu, your unworthy disciple Su Chen is in trouble and requires your assistance." Frowning after reading the opening lines, she realized this letter was from Su Chen, the disciple she had not heard from in so long. Since he left the mountain, she had received no news from him. Still, he was her disciple after all, having followed her for many years, and she held genuine affection for Su Chen. So, receiving a letter from him did bring her some joy. But after reading through it, Xixue was both shocked and puzzled. She halted the circulation of her inner breath used for healing. She paced back and forth a few times with a troubled expression, and ultimately decided to descend the mountain to assess the situation. Although she trusted Gu Junqing completely, believing he would not betray her or commit fratricide, she still felt the need to see the circumstances for herself before making a decision. Xixue straightened her clothes, hesitated for a moment, then donned a black robe and a black mask, concealing her peerlessly beautiful and breathtaking true appearance. She was quite confident in her looks, as having grown up, she had rarely seen any woman who could rival her beauty. With a touch of pride, Xixue thought to herself, "No wonder disciple Junqing was stunned when he first saw me." Now that she was preparing to descend into the city, there were many things she needed to get ready. A breeze blew in, revealing the words on the paper that starkly accused Gu Junqing of betraying the sect, bullying his senior sister, and even attempting to murder Su Chen. Even so, Xixue still chose to believe in Gu Junqing. This showed the significant place Gu Junqing held in her heart. In a flash, Xixue drifted away like a phantom. Any ordinary person who saw her would likely think they had encountered a ghost. Her movement technique was incredibly swift. With a single push off the ground, she could glide several meters away. Cultivated to Xixue's level, feats like treading on waves or moving lightly through falling petals were effortless and could be performed with ease. Even Gu Junqing could achieve such feats, but being in a bustling city, there was no need to display his exceptional martial skills. After all, Gu Junqing's status in Luodu was already prominent. Adding more halo would only be icing on the cake for his reputation. Very few people knew about Gu Junqing's martial prowess. He had only made a move a handful of times, and those were against the protagonists. Naturally, those protagonists would not go around boasting about how powerful Gu Junqing was. Others merely thought Gu Junqing was somewhat skilled in fighting, not the kind of master who could kill with a single punch. Moreover, martial power was Gu Junqing's means to deal with any unforeseen events beyond his control. It was his most crucial tool. Strength was the prerequisite for mastering everything. Without it, even with control over the vast Gu family enterprise, he would ultimately be no match for those powerful protagonists. It could be said that martial power was the foundation for resolving all issues, which was precisely why it needed to be kept well hidden. Chapter 159. Gu Junqing had no idea that Xixue had already descended the mountain, but even if he knew, it would not matter much. At most, he would just need to hide some of the fish in his pond, and not expose all of them. Otherwise, he would struggle to control such a chaotic situation. How could so many adorable little ones withstand a big shark like Xixue, especially since she held the position of his master? If she were to use Gu Junqing to command the harem, it would be troublesome. Moreover, Gu Junqing was still in the process of recuperating. After all, no one could endure a day and night lifestyle like his. Fortunately, Gu Junqing was still young and, with the conditioning from the Yellow Emperor's inner cannon, he barely managed to withstand the alternating draining by the various sharks. It was precisely because of his day and night antics with Jinlian that Gu Junqing felt utterly exhausted. That was why he could not hand over the public grain to Yumiajin. Thankfully, neither Jinlian nor Yumiajin had practiced martial arts, so they could only rely on dual cultivation with Gu Junqing to enhance their physique. This allowed them to withstand his advances. As for martial artists like Xixue, whose strength slightly surpassed Gu Junqing's, he really could not say for sure if he could steadily defeat her. After all, there are differences in physique and strength between men and women. Unless Gu Junqing acted as a refrigerator and let Xixue be the ice, allowing her to come up and freeze herself, he might truly conquer her. Of course, it was still too early to talk about this. After all, Xixue's favorability toward Gu Junqing had not reached 90 yet, so some positions would be hard to unlock all at once. He could only rely on his hard work, taking the shortest path to a woman's heart. Gu Junqing drove his newly acquired Maserati Quattraport, following from a distance the group of thugs led by Wei Suo to find Zhang Feiyu. A smile played in Gu Junqing's eyes. He wanted to see how the protagonist would react when the law enforcers no longer stood on his side. Would he resist or obediently surrender? In his previous life, when Gu Junqing read some novels where the protagonist clashed with the villain, beating up many of the villain's men, but ending up unscathed, he found it quite absurd. Even after sending people to the hospital intensive care unit, the protagonist did not have to compensate or apologize. It was just a formality. It is important to know that in a fight, responsibility is not determined by the number of people involved. It is usually divided based on the harm caused. Yet, every time, the protagonist could rely on the protagonist halo to evade responsibility and avoid punishment. Although Gu Junqing used to enjoy reading such novels, he naturally could not see the protagonist's actions as favorable now that he had become the antagonist. He was already incredibly curious. If the protagonist unilaterally attacked someone, would he be punished? Gu Junqing's eyes sparkled with amusement. He had instructed Wei Suo's men not to bring any tools, and not to fight back, just let Zhang Feiyu hit them. Whoever got the most severely injured would even receive a monetary reward from Gu Junqing, so they all agreed to his plan. Seeing that they had not yet reached the agreed-upon fight location with Zhang Feiyu, Gu Junqing took the leisure to listen to the chattering conversation between Mirong Wan and Luo Ningyu. "Wanner, this car is so beautiful. It feels so luxurious. Is this the kind of car rich people ride in?" Luo Ningyu touched everything around her, her eyes practically sparkling with stars. "Wanner, I suddenly understand why some women would rather cry in a BMW." After saying this, Luo Ningyu added in a shy, soft voice with flushed cheeks, "But if it is Junqing, I would be willing no matter what." Mirong Wan also felt emotional. Although her family was not poor, they still could not afford the car Gu Junqing was currently driving, let alone the fact that he drove a different car every time. Only now did they truly comprehend the real gap between themselves and Gu Junqing, a distance they could not bridge no matter what. "Wanner, I do not want to work hard anymore. You should support me in the future." Luo Ningyu sighed and said to Mirong Wan. Then, her lovely, jade-like face nestled against Mirong Wan's chest, as she coquettishly snuggled closer, her captivating peach blossom eyes sparkling as she clearly imagined future scenarios. "Sure, once I strike it rich, I will definitely take care of you." Mirong Wan raised an eyebrow, unable to resist her best friend's coquetry. Gu Junqing nearly laughed out loud. Other sisters might encourage each other to work hard and improve together, but these two were different, as they hoped the other would get rich so they could be taken care of. However, had Mirong Wan and Luo Ningyu forgotten that they had Gu Junqing as an option in the future? Or were they actually waiting for me to make a statement? Gu Junqing raised an eyebrow. Glancing in the rearview mirror, he indeed noticed the two girls staring intently at him. "All right, as long as I am here, how could I ever let you two sisters go hungry?" After Gu Junqing made his statement with a smile, the two girls finally seemed satisfied, and resumed chatting about their own matters. What they wanted was not money or material things, but a promise for the future. At the very least, Gu Junqing would not suddenly abandon them one day. As long as he remained by their side and never left them, they were willing to give their all, with their hearts completely devoted to him. They were unwilling to leave, unwilling to lose him. As for the fight Gu Junqing and the others had discussed earlier, they had no interest in it. After all, Gu Junqing would protect them, and they only cared that he did not get hurt himself. Gu Junqing followed Wei Suo, and the others from a distance, until they finally arrived at the agreed-upon location. Gu Junqing narrowed his eyes. Sure enough, the person facing them was Zhang Feiyu. Zhang Feiyu was alone, while Wei Suo and his group had brought many people. At first glance, it seemed as though Wei Suo and the others were bullying Zhang Feiyu. But Gu Junqing activated his golden eyes and observed the internal energy circulation within Zhang Feiyu from afar, realizing that Zhang Feiyu's current strength should not be underestimated. In fact, he was almost on par with Gu Junqing's senior sister, Chen Lingyu, who had reached the third grade realm. This meant Zhang Feiyu's current strength was no less than Chen Lingyu's, who had defeated Su Chen in a single move. Gu Junqing could only sigh at the protagonist's rapid progress. He had not been keeping an eye on Zhang Feiyu for just a short while, yet his strength had improved so quickly. It was worth noting that Chen Lingyu also possessed the luck of a female lead, and had trained for many years to reach her current third-grade strength. Yet Zhang Feiyu had managed to catch up to Chen Lingyu's level in just a few months. Moreover, since Zhang Feiyu's system required him to accumulate bragging points to obtain the elixir that could restore his manhood, he likely had not used bragging points to enhance his strength. Instead, he had relied solely on his own encounters and opportunities. If he were to use his strongest golden finger, the system, to enhance himself again, his current strength should be far greater than this. Gu Junqing narrowed his eyes. Since Zhang Feiyu's will had grown so long, it was time for him to start considering the harvest. Chapter 160. Through his golden eyes perspective ability, Gu Junqing detected a chilling yin energy in Zhang Feiyu's inner breath that seemed unlike martial arts typically practiced by men. Gu Junqing stroked his chin thoughtfully, wondering if it could be some technique similar to the Sunflower Manual. Is this what being a protagonist means? Even after being physically crippled, he can still grow powerful through special techniques bestowed upon him. This made Gu Junqing sigh with admiration. Unlike Zhang Feiyu, he could only rely on painstakingly harvesting benefits from protagonists and strengthening himself through intimate interactions with female leads. Not that he minded though. After all, not everyone could engage in negative distance communication with female leads, especially when interacting with someone like Yumiajin, who would repay a drop of kindness with a fountain of gratitude. That feeling is something everyone should understand. Gu Junqing's eyes sparkled with amusement. The stronger Zhang Feiyu became, the more satisfying it would be to harvest benefits from him. The more powerful he grew, the more villain points Gu Junqing could obtain. Of course, Zhang Feiyu's strength could not exceed certain limits. It would be rather ironic if Gu Junqing treated him as a sheep to be sheared, only to find himself unable to defeat him. Protagonist, Zhang Feiyu. Golden Finger. Show-off system. Combat power. 312. Charm value. 30. Protagonist halo. 1000. You actually dare to come here, Zhang Feiyu said gloomily, raising a hand with an effeminate gesture. Being called effeminate touched a raw nerve. If he had not been crippled and forced to practice this technique, he would never have become like this. Even his orientation was beginning to change. Not only was he developing certain thoughts about Su Chen, but he also felt strange impulses toward many other men. The cultivation technique was gradually turning him into something perverted, which frightened him. But for survival, and to take revenge on Gu Junqing, he had no choice but to continue practicing. Fortunately, the system had clearly told him that once he exchanged for the great reviving pill, he could return to his original orientation and capabilities. He might even become stronger than before, both in combat power and other abilities. That is why he was desperate to obtain the great reviving pill, even if it meant delaying his power growth. After all, this special technique had already made him countless times stronger than when Gu Junqing had defeated him. He could now defeat his former self as easily as Gu Junqing had back then. But Gu Junqing's true strength remained unfathomable, and the increasingly powerful Gu family was not to be provoked lightly. So for now, he remained in hiding. He did not want to confront Gu Junqing directly yet. Revenge is a dish best served cold. Moreover, Su Chen's misfortune served as a warning. Having been reduced to such a state, Su Chen had lost almost everything to Gu Junqing. With Su Chen already defeated, if Zhang Feiyu did not step up now, he would have no allies left to confront Gu Junqing, leaving him to fight alone. He was also somewhat intimidated by the Gu family's rapid expansion. News reports constantly featured the Gu conglomerate's latest achievements. They had practically become the benchmark for Luo City's development. Therefore, he had to abandon his plan to continue lying low and slowly began formulating strategies to deal with Gu Junqing. How dare we not come? You think we are afraid of a sissy like you? Wei Suo curled his lips in a mocking sneer, exuding such a deliberately provocative attitude that he seemed desperate for Zhang Feiyu to come punch him. Yeah, are you wearing women's underwear under there? Did you put on black stockings? Come on, show us. You think we are scared of you? Go ahead, try hitting me. Look at you flicking your wrist like that. Do you even have a dick? Never tasted a woman before, have you? Want me to show you the ropes? Haha. Oh, you are so scary. I am trembling. Why don't you have a peach? It is so refreshing. Wei Suo's lackeys, blinded by Gu Junqing's promised reward, held nothing back. They hurled every vile insult they could muster, each trying to outdo the other in vulgarity. After all, we are talking about tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of yuan. To Gu Junqing it was pocket change, but to people like them, it was a life-changing sum. So what if they got beaten up? They picked fights and provoked others daily, and getting punched was practically routine. Moreover, Gu Junqing had explicitly said Whoever gets beaten the worst gets the biggest reward. So the lackeys deliberately targeted Zhang Feiyu's deepest insecurities, taunting him relentlessly to ensure he would snap. A torrent of filthy remarks flooded Zhang Feiyu's ears. His face turned ashen with rage. He could not fathom where these insects found the courage to provoke him like this. Gu Junqing smiled faintly. Well, of course, it was all thanks to the courage money can buy. The power of wealth often exceeds imagination. Money makes the devil turn millstones is not just an empty saying. Those who serve God for money would just as readily serve the devil for more. And what Gu Junqing asked of them was not even difficult, just getting beaten up. Anyone could do that. Gu Junqing massaged his temples in mild exasperation. Did these fools not realize Zhang Feiyu's current strength? The man could easily kill someone with a single full-force punch now. Then again, anyone who would follow a guy like Xixue was probably not the sharpest tool in the shed. If they had any brains, they would have realized such a generous reward meant the task would not be easy. Gu Junqing was not some charity fairy handing out fortunes for simple errands. Originally, Gu Junqing thought these guys just needed to mildly provoke Zhang Feiyu, maybe earn a hospital trip at most. But listening to their current taunts, he started wondering if he should just call the funeral parlor in advance. Carry them in today, hold the funeral tomorrow. They were deliberately scraping against Zhang Feiyu's rawest nerves. They knew he hated being called effeminate, yet they kept pouring salt on the wound. Still, Gu Junqing had to admit he enjoyed hearing Zhang Feiyu get insulted. But now it was time to mourn for these idiots. He could only hope the cops would arrive soon. Maybe then at least a few would survive instead of all ending up in the ICU. Zhang Feiyu suddenly fell silent amid their insults, his face completely expressionless. Yet everyone could feel it. He was like a dormant volcano, moments away from eruption. Like the calm before a storm. The longer the silence, the more violent the explosion would be. Gu Junqing clicked his tongue twice and hurriedly closed the window, stopping the two women who had been curiously watching the scene. Children should not watch such bloody scenes, Gu Junqing advised. The girls pouted but obeyed his words. Do you really not know whether we are children or not? I am a woman you cannot even hold in one hand. Luodu tossed her head with a huff. Gu Junqing stroked his chin, turned to glance at Luodu, and realized it was indeed as she said. He truly could not. As for Mirongwan, she had already begun silently shedding tears. Chapter 161. Zhang Feiyu's face turned gloomy. He glanced at everyone on the field and decided to start with the man who had the most colorful hair and the meanest look. With a flash of speed, he appeared in front of Xixue. This sudden movement frightened both Xixue and his subordinates. Is this even human? How could he be this fast? Xixue finally felt fear when he saw Zhang Feiyu standing directly in front of him. He secretly complained about his bad luck. Why were so many people staring at him? He did not realize that his colorful hair made him stand out from the crowd. He could not dwell on his regrets now. He threw a punch. Bang! Zhang Feiyu caught his fist with a palm. Xixue's expression changed. He lashed out with his other hand, feeling that his life was threatened. A cold light flashed in Zhang Feiyu's eyes. He punched Xixue in the stomach. Click! Xixue's fist seemed to hit a speeding shell, like smashing an egg against a stone. His hand was broken by Zhang Feiyu's impact. Xixue's face twisted in agony. Zhang Feiyu kicked him away. Xixue landed heavily on the ground with serious injuries. Xixue's fate taught his subordinates a painful lesson. They had assumed Xixue was the leader because he was the most formidable fighter among them. Xixue could usually take on 2 or 3 of them at once. Unexpectedly, he was knocked unconscious in a single round. They had not expected this delicate man to be such a capable fighter. They thought they were just there to shake down a rich man named Gu Junqing. The subordinates hesitated. Money was important, but it meant nothing if they were dead. Do not be afraid, everyone. He is only one person, and there are many of us. Some men could no longer bear the terrifying atmosphere. Their boss had been beaten into a coma, and they knew they were weaker than him. Still, running away meant they could never show their faces again. They forced themselves to rush forward. Standard mob tactics were ineffective against someone of Zhang Feiyu's caliber. Unless they possessed equal strength or firearms, they posed no threat. Thermal weapons still posed a danger to low-grade practitioners. Within 7 steps, guns were fast and accurate. Physical speed struggled to outpace a bullet, requiring small-scale movement to evade. Even an expert like the Fire Cloud Evil God could catch bullets, but he would still die if shot by a squad. Zhang Feiyu knocked everyone out with ease. This was only because he was holding back. He could have easily killed them with a single punch if he had wanted to. Gu Junqing watched the scene with his golden eyes. He noted that Zhang Feiyu's footwork was faster than his peers. His skills seemed to be derived from an extraordinary manual, reminiscent of the speed found in the Sunflower Manual. However, Zhang Feiyu's current strength was unremarkable to Gu Junqing. He remained unfazed and unimpressed. Zhang Feiyu was destined to die, but his utility had not yet been exhausted. Gu Junqing narrowed his eyes, waiting for the right moment. Soon, the field was filled with wailing. Only Zhang Feiyu and one of Xixue's subordinates remained standing. The subordinate's legs shook as he saw Zhang Feiyu approaching without expression. He collapsed to the ground in terror. Zhang Feiyu noticed that the man who had just scolded him had wet himself. He frowned in disgust and prepared to strike. Suddenly, a voice stopped him. Stop, this is the police. Someone reported a fight. Raise your hands. Ling Xuanta walked in with a heroic demeanor, dressed in her uniform. A large number of officers followed her, fearing they would need to handle a large group. They were surprised to find only one person still standing. Zhang Fei frowned and subconsciously raised his pinky finger. He hesitated, but decided he was in the right since these people attacked him first. He ignored the officers. He kicked the last subordinate, knocking him unconscious. Zhang Fei felt a sense of relief after clearing out the person who had insulted him. He had not intended to use such force, but these people had angered him. He saw no reason to show mercy. Seeing Zhang Fei continue to attack after their arrival, the officers surrounded him. Two men grabbed his arms and handcuffed him. They were unaware that a third-grade expert like Zhang Fei could easily break free if he chose to. Zhang Fei noticed the officers were equipped with guns. He decided not to resist. He did not dare to break into the Gu estate or mess with Gu Junqing, let alone confront state power. He was not yet strong enough to defy the Gu family. Ling Xuanja surveyed the scene. She found everyone on the ground had suffered injuries, with some knocked into a coma. The man with colorful hair had his ribs cracked and his hand bones shattered by a punch. This level of violence was rare for her line of work. If no one died, this would likely be classified as a major assault case. Ling Xuanja ordered the officers to take the injured to the hospital. She kept the conscious subordinates behind to provide statements. She walked up to Zhang Fei with a frown. Could a martial artist really be this powerful? He had single-handedly incapacitated so many people while remaining completely unharmed. His strength was clearly not ordinary. Chapter 162. Ling Xuanja frowned and walked forward, though her colleagues quickly tried to stop her. After all, she was a woman, and since Zhang Fei had managed to take down so many people, they feared he might have malicious intentions. Ling Xuanja signaled that she was fine, so her colleagues allowed her to approach. Zhang Fei's eyes gleamed with interest as he watched the heroic female officer walk toward him. Although Ling Xuanja appeared solemn, her eyes were like clear springs. Her slender willow eyebrows framed a pair of bright, dark eyes that seemed to possess a captivating charm. Beneath her short, refreshing hairstyle was a fair face, featuring a delicate, straight nose and a slightly upturned mouth. She was neat, capable, and undeniably beautiful. Although Zhang Fei had lost his manhood, he had once been a man. Seeing such a stunning woman, his eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. A trace of disgust flashed in Ling Xuanja's eyes. She detested being looked at like that, especially by someone like Zhang Fei, whose use of makeup made him appear pretentious. The ground was covered in a chaotic mess of seriously injured people. She was curious about Zhang Fei because of his immense strength. However, witnessing the scene and observing his effeminate behavior gave her a terrible first impression. System notification. Heroine Ling Xuanja's favorability toward the protagonist Zhang Fei has decreased by 20 points, bringing it to -20, which is considered disgust. You have plundered 100 points of her luck. System notification. The host has altered the plot. Reward: 2,000 villain points. Gu Junqing raised an eyebrow from his vantage point in the distance. He had not expected such an unexpected joy, nor had he anticipated that the heroine, Ling Xuanja, would make an appearance. What is your name, and why did you attack these people? Ling Xuanja decided to begin her interrogation immediately, as this was a serious assault case. My name is Zhang Fei, beauty. What is your name? When Zhang Fei heard her questioning tone, he was still captivated by her pleasant voice and felt himself falling in love. It was different from his previous fixation on Su Chen, as this was a surge of dopamine. He felt as though he were truly in love, completely controlled by his hormones. He felt deeply attracted to Ling Xuanja, and resolved that once he restored his male vitality through the system, he would definitely share some intimate time with her. Ling Xuanja's eyes were filled with profound disgust. Many criminals would subconsciously try to tease her, and she wondered if they all suffered from similar delusions. She saw Zhang Fei's devious expression, as if he believed she had no choice but to indulge him. Seeing him stare with such greed made her want to slap him. She acted on that impulse. A loud slap echoed through the air. Ling Xuanja stepped forward and struck Zhang Fei, leaving everyone present stunned. She was about to be restrained by her colleagues when she held them back. Sister Ling, we have not yet confirmed he is the aggressor, and his injuries are not that serious. If the superiors find out you assaulted a suspect, you will be punished, so just arresting him is enough. Ling Xuanja snorted coldly. It is fine, do not worry. I will take responsibility for this myself. Zhang Fei was momentarily stunned by the strike. Others expected him to be angry, but instead, he laughed as he licked his lips, his eyes burning with even more blatant lust. Beauty, you are so hot, I really like you like this. Ling Xuanja was left speechless, not having expected her slap to only provide him with pleasure. However, she refused to continue engaging with such a disgusting individual. She narrowed her eyes and resumed her questioning. Tell me quickly, what is going on and why did you beat these people? If you do not say anything, I will take you to the station to explain it there. Zhang Fei stared at Ling Xuanja intently. He did not understand why his temperament had become so perverted and evil ever since his lower body was mutilated, and he began practicing this special martial art. Even regarding Su Chen, he felt an urge to torture him. But he did not care, as he believed that once he took his revenge and regained his manhood, he would revert to his old self. If Gu Junqing knew of his changes, he would surely tell him that it was perfectly normal for a man's mind to warp after practicing such a martial art as a eunuch. Even Dongfang Bubi fell in love with Yang Lianting, so his reaction was to be expected. After a long pause, he spoke slowly. They all attacked me at once, but because I am strong enough, I am fine, and they are the ones who ended up like this. You should be arresting them, not me. Ling Xuanja sneered. Really? Do you realize that several of the people you beat have been sent to the intensive care unit? Also, who initiated the fight? You or them? Furthermore, since you are so strong, was it really necessary to beat them so severely that they lost consciousness? Ling Xuanja knew that establishing who struck first was crucial. If Zhang Feiyu had attacked first, the severity of the injuries he inflicted would make his defense useless. He had deliberately crushed the groins of several men, which constituted a serious, permanent injury. He did not have his own, so he clearly did not want others to have theirs either. Besides, they were the ones who attacked me first. They were a whole group beating up on me, so what if I used a little force? This was a case of self-defense. And beautiful officer, I am just delivering justice. These people are all subordinates of a man named Gu Junqing, and the man with the colorful hair even claimed to be his relative. Zhang Feiyu gritted his teeth. Honestly, he did not believe that Gu Junqing would be related to such people, but he was more than willing to smear Gu Junqing's reputation. Ling Xuanja felt stuck. Judging by the scene, Zhang Feiyu had no accomplices, and had single-handedly incapacitated the entire group. She did not know what to say, and since there was no security footage to capture the incident, she had no hard evidence. Even if she brought Zhang Feiyu back, it would be difficult to hold him without proof, and at most, he would be ordered to pay medical expenses. If he hired a high-quality lawyer, he might even be able to sue the arresting officers for misconduct. However, she still needed to investigate the ins and outs of the matter to assign responsibility. In truth, many officers were sympathetic to Zhang Feiyu. It was impressive to hold his own against such a large group. Despite his strange, somewhat feminine clothing and gloomy demeanor, he appeared relatively normal compared to the group he fought. The people he had beaten looked like street thugs, complete with their flashy hair and gangster attire. Many officers actually preferred Zhang Feiyu, even though his appearance made them feel disgusted. Chapter 163. Ling Xuanja had originally been wavering in her heart, also wondering whether Zhang Feiyu should be arrested or not. Although she disliked the way Zhang Feiyu looked at her, she couldn't determine who bore greater responsibility in this matter based solely on that. But upon hearing that the leader of the beaten group might be Gu Junqing's relative, she decided not to believe Zhang Feiyu's words. No matter what, Zhang Feiyu had no right to speak ill of Gu Junqing. Ling Xuanja already disliked Zhang Feiyu, and hearing him try to slander Gu Junqing made her despise him even more. Ever since she caught a glimpse of Gu Junqing on the road last time, she hadn't been able to forget him. She still remembered the fleeting charm of her first encounter with Gu Junqing. That moment when their eyes met in the car truly lived up to the saying, a single glance can span 10,000 years. Gazing at his strikingly handsome face that seemed almost otherworldly, his pair of pitch-black eyes resembling sparkling obsidian, and his exquisite, fair skin akin to ancient jade from millennia past, it was the first time Ling Xuanja had felt such strong attraction toward someone, as if a stone had been suddenly thrown into her tranquil heart, creating ripples that spread wave after wave. From that moment on, Ling Xuanja began frequently searching for information about Gu Junqing online, discovering that evaluations of him grew increasingly impressive. Even when checking Gu Junqing's records through the law enforcer's exclusive network, the results were the same. He seemed to stand above his peers in every aspect, as if viewing them from cloud heights. Of course, given Gu Junqing's capabilities, any blemishes would have long been erased, making them invisible to ordinary people, even to law enforcers. What remained visible was precisely what should remain visible. Ling Xuanja often dreamed of Gu Junqing, imagining their life together, dating, even kissing, caressing, and engaging in various intimate activities. She had essentially become a devoted fangirl, what might be called self-inflicted infatuation in legend. Gu Junqing had merely employed the female lead charm aura and his own charisma to make Ling Xuanja, a female lead herself, descend into schoolgirl-like romantic fantasies. Thus, when Ling Xuanja heard Zhang Feiyu speaking ill of Gu Junqing, her disgust toward him deepened considerably. Ding. Female lead Ling Xuanja's favorability toward male lead Zhang Feiyu decreased by 20, now at -40, extreme disgust. Seized 100 points of his luck. Ding. Host altered plot, rewarded 2,000 villain points. Tisk tisk, I haven't even appeared yet, and Zhang Feiyu has almost driven Ling Xuanja's favorability to rock bottom. Gu Junqing clicked his tongue twice, nearly laughing aloud. He had never seen a protagonist drive a female lead's favorability to extreme disgust during their first meeting. Indeed, since Zhang Feiyu had been neutered, his entire mindset had changed. It seemed that destroying the male protagonist's manhood proved quite effective. Gu Junqing stroked his chin, contemplating. Although protagonists typically maintained firm willpower and wouldn't change their character without major events, they were still men after all, and all men care about their little brothers. Wonderful. I love this feeling of earning villain points without lifting a finger. Gu Junqing sighed contentedly, making Mirong Wan and Luodu exchange glances before following his gaze toward the beautiful female law enforcer interrogating Zhang Feiyu. They thought Gu Junqing had taken a liking to that female cop. Exchanging a glance, they each planted a kiss on one of Gu Junqing's cheeks. They believed that using their beauty to tempt Gu Junqing would surely prevent him from straying. But they were still too young. Even Yu Miajin and Yu Jinlian, who intended to drain Gu Junqing dry, couldn't achieve it. How could a mere kiss have any effect? Ah, these young girls, still so naive. Gu Junqing enjoyed their intimacy and chuckled softly. What's gotten into you two? Humph, aren't we pretty enough? You kept staring at someone else. Luo Ningyu pouted her lips, looking so adorable that Gu Junqing felt an urge to kiss her. That's right, we can wear uniforms too. Whatever you want, we can dress up for you. Mirongwan blushed and lowered her head, her voice as faint as a mosquito's buzz, clearly embarrassed to say such things. Gu Junqing felt his heart ache for Luo Ningyu and Mirongwan. They were so innocent and pure, making him want to cherish them dearly. All right, I won't look. But take this recording device to that pretty sister over there. Gu Junqing patted Luo Ningyu's head and handed her the video he had already recorded of Zhang Feiyu taking on a group of people single-handedly. From his filming angle, it clearly showed Zhang Feiyu throwing the first punch, while Wei Suo's group never even fought back. It looked like Zhang Feiyu was unilaterally beating them up. Moreover, the entire incident happened in an extremely short time, which would significantly change the nature of the case. It would shift from a group fight with counterattacks to Zhang Feiyu using his superior martial arts to bully a group. With this change in context, Zhang Feiyu's outcome would be entirely different. Previously, since it was a mutual fight, the law enforcers couldn't rely solely on either side's testimony, making it difficult to determine who was at fault. But with Gu Junqing's physical evidence, the case became clear. Gu Junqing also instructed Luo Ningyu and Mirongwan on what to say before sending them off to submit the evidence. Seeing that Gu Junqing had no intention of leaving, Luo Ningyu followed his instructions. She and Mirongwan picked up the recording equipment and hurried light-footedly toward Ling Xuanzhe's direction. A law enforcer noticed a high school-looking girl running over and quickly stopped her. Hello, little miss. There's been an accident ahead, so this area is closed. A male law enforcer, struck by Luo Ningyu's cuteness, brightened up and volunteered to intercept her. Officer, we were driving by earlier and recorded the entire fight. Luo Ningyu smiled, revealing a small dimple, her expression blooming like a flower. Her dark hair cascaded like a clear pool, loosely draped over her right shoulder, tied casually with a deep purple ribbon. Without much adornment, it accentuated her jade-like face, making it even more radiant and delicate. The male law enforcer was momentarily stunned. Are all young girls this beautiful nowadays? He thought to himself. But hearing that they had evidence, he didn't dare delay. Wait here, I'll go notify someone. The male law enforcer hurried to the center of the scene to find Ling Xuanzhe. Ling Xuanzhe was still questioning Zhang Feiyu, but he stuck to his story. Frustrated, she was about to take him to the law enforcement hall for further investigation. Check the nearby cameras again to see if there's any evidence to prove it. Since Zhang Feiyu had even dragged Gu Junqing into this matter, she, Ling Xuanzhe, was determined to get to the bottom of it. If Gu Junqing weren't a few years younger than her, she would have considered him as her idol. Chapter 164. Ling Xuanzhe was determined to resolve this matter precisely to see Gu Junqing again. After all, if someone really had a connection with him, there was a chance he might show up. This made her heart flutter, and she began to wonder if there was anything wrong with her outfit today. In her eagerness to see him, she became even more anxious to ask Zhang Feiyu everything he knew. But she had no idea that Gu Junqing was currently nearby, watching her at this very moment. Officer Ling, there are two girls outside who say they recorded the entire incident. They are waiting with the recording equipment now, the male law enforcer said, slightly out of breath. Ling Xuanzhe was overjoyed and quickly followed him outside. There she met Luo Ningyu and Mirongwan. She was surprised when she saw the two girls. She never expected them to be so beautiful. They were clearly still high school students. If they grew up a few more years, who knew what kind of stunning beauties they would become? According to some of her colleagues' evaluations, her own looks were already considered 1 in a million. Yet here she was, encountering two girls whose beauty could rival hers. Are you the ones who recorded the fight earlier? Afraid of scaring the two girls, Ling Xuanzhe asked with a smile. Mirongwan and Luo Ningyu exchanged a glance, then nodded guiltily. They did not want to expose Gu Junqing's involvement. With his charm, they did not believe any woman could resist him. To avoid adding another sister to their circle, Mirongwan and Luo Ningyu, who were usually honest, blushed and nodded. Ling Xuanzhe raised an eyebrow. She had studied criminal psychology. Generally, when people lie, they avoid direct eye contact or exhibit small gestures, such as fidgeting with their skirts, lowering their heads, or picking at their nails. Of course, Gu Junqing was an exception. With his skills, lying without batting an eye was effortless for him. But these two girls were clearly lying for the first time, and they fit all the signs perfectly. Watching them blush as they claimed to have recorded the footage, Ling Xuanzhe found it amusing. They were just too adorable. Unlike her, who had grown up like a boy due to her family background, and had taken up this job as a law enforcer. But since they were not the ones who recorded it, there must be someone else behind it. Ling Xuanzhe subtly glanced into the distance and noticed a car parked quite far away. She realized that the location faced the scene of the fight. From there, the filming angle would have been perfect. Ling Xuanzhe narrowed her eyes, wanting to find out who owned that car and what their intentions were. However, she decided to let it go. Whoever provided the evidence did not matter. As long as she could solve this case, she might have a chance to see the long-awaited Gu Junqing again. If she knew that he was sitting in that car, she would not bother with the case at all. After all, her goal was simply to see Gu Junqing. Wouldn't it be better to chat with him and exchange contact information? As for investigating the case, had she even been here tonight? Ling Xuanzhe took the recording equipment from Luo Ningyu and played the footage. Once again, she was astonished by Zhang Feiyu's martial arts skills. Such speed could no longer be considered ordinary. They were even stronger than the martial arts masters in movies, almost every one of them was taken down with a single move. Even if a pig stood still to be captured, it would take more than a few minutes to catch them all. However, Zhang Fei's charge of wantonly assaulting everyone by relying on his martial prowess was established. This way, if he were to be locked up, no one would have much to say. Ling Xuanja was very excited and thanked the girls. This was a huge surprise. What are your names? I want to properly reward you. She wanted to sincerely thank these two girls, and even the actual provider of the recording from that car. But since he did not want to show himself, she decided not to disturb him. No need, sister. We should get going now. We're just happy to be able to help you. Sister, you go ahead. The two girls quickly waved their hands to indicate it was not necessary, then smiled and bid farewell to Ling Xuanja. They seemed anxious for her to leave. Could it be that the boy they liked was up there, afraid he might fall for me, or that I might fall for him? After studying criminal investigation for several years, Ling Xuanja easily guessed the true intentions of these two high school girls. She sighed inwardly. Two girls both falling for the same person. Is this what young love is like? She really must be getting old. Her current view on love was to become a wealthy woman and see if she could keep Gu Junqing as her pet lover. However, both the Gu family behind him and his own capabilities made her wish somewhat unattainable. How was she supposed to flirt with such an outstanding young man in the future? But what she did not know was that if she told Gu Junqing she wanted to keep him as a lover, he would probably be very willing to agree. Who would not want another understanding older sister by their side? Ling Xuanja curled her lips into a smile, waved to the girls, said goodbye, and turned back to Zhang Fei's side. Zhang Fei now had his hands behind his back, rewarded with a pair of silver bracelets, handcuffs, by the law enforcers. He stood there bored, but his eyes lit up when he saw Ling Xuanja return. Beautiful law enforcer, you must have clarified everything by now, right? I have nothing to do with this, do I? Nothing to do with you. Ling Xuanja sneered. You're really something. With your martial arts skills, these silver bracelets probably cannot even hold you, can they? Beautiful sister, what are you talking about? Zhang Fei frowned. He knew a bit about the law. Without evidence, he would at most have to pay some compensation. But looking at Ling Xuanja's expression, it was clear she had obtained evidence. This made it hard for Zhang Fei to believe. He had not sensed anyone around at the time, and had deliberately chosen a remote place with no surveillance cameras. Is that so? Then take a look at this. Ling Xuanja showed Zhang Fei the recording from the device, causing his face to change dramatically. He even forgot to disguise his voice. How could you possibly have this? Zhang Fei let out a harsh, shrill, duck-like voice that made the surrounding law enforcers raise their eyebrows. It really did sound like a eunuch's voice. Could he actually be a eunuch? Chapter 165. Since practicing that technique, Zhang Fei's entire physique had undergone changes. It was not just his appearance, but even his voice had begun to sharpen. This had become somewhat of a concern to him. He usually masked it with a falsetto. Unexpectedly, his mental state had been greatly disturbed, causing him to accidentally reveal his real voice. Seeing the law enforcers around him adopt strange expressions and even sneak glances at his crotch, as if suspecting he had lost his male characteristics, Zhang Fei gritted his teeth until they creaked. His eyes blazed with uncontrollable fury. The surrounding law enforcers had all seen the recording device in Ling Xuanja's hands. They knew better than to treat Zhang Fei as an ordinary person. His unfathomable speed might genuinely allow him to dodge bullets. Thus, they stood ready for battle, each placing a hand on the pistols at their waists, prepared to execute Zhang Fei on the spot if he made any sudden moves. Noting their stance, a flicker of emotion passed through Zhang Fei's eyes. He snorted coldly but remained still. Ding. Mission issued. Shatter the recording device in front of the law enforcers to eliminate the host's vulnerability. Reward upon completion, 10,000 bragging points. Hearing the mission from his system, Zhang Fei slowly began circulating his internal energy within. He was searching for an opportunity to destroy that recording device. Seeing no movement from him, the law enforcers relaxed slightly. They started discussing how to safely bring him back to the enforcement hall. This was no pushover. His fighting style, targeting vital weak points, made that clear. Growing anxious, Zhang Fei stared at the distant recording device. He could not afford to return with evidence intact. Given the severity of his attacks on those people, he would be lucky to avoid imprisonment. Moreover, the reward was 10,000 bragging points, enough to exchange for a great reviving pill. Just then, Zhang Fei's protagonist halo activated in time. To set the stage for his impending bravado, a strong wind swept across the area, rustling the leaves of the surrounding trees. The law enforcers began to wonder, as there had been no forecast of wind today. As the wind blew, numerous leaves fluttered down. A cold glint flashed in Zhang Fei's eyes. Seizing the moment when no one was paying attention, he pinched a leaf between his fingers and channeled his energy. The leaf shot forth like a blade, whistling straight toward the recording device. It moved with extreme speed. The law enforcers only heard a sharp tearing sound before the entire recording device and its memory card were sliced in two. The spinning leaf, unable to withstand the force, disintegrated completely. The power of the third rank was truly fearsome. Even a flower petal or fallen leaf could become a weapon. However, he still needed a medium to manifest his strength. Had he reached the transcendent 7th rank or higher, he could have released energy externally, shattering the recording device with a mere flick of his finger. But Zhang Fei clearly had not attained that level yet. Nevertheless, He found an opportunity to use a leaf to cut the recording device and its memory card. Before the law enforcers could grasp what had happened, they saw the recording device suddenly split in half. Stunned and horrified, they stood frozen in place. As low-level law enforcers, they had never witnessed such marvels. This was power beyond ordinary imagination. Ling sister, what just happened? Some bewildered law enforcers still did not understand what had happened. Their minds were roiling with shock and awe, only now realizing just how terrifying Zhang Feiyu's martial prowess truly was. Ling Xuanja was at a loss for words as well. Even she had only seen something fly through the air before the recording device seemed to be sliced apart. Though she did not know how Zhang Feiyu had done it or why the recording equipment had suddenly been cut, she was certain Zhang Feiyu had destroyed it to eliminate evidence. Furious, Ling Xuanja stormed up to Zhang Feiyu and grabbed him by the collar. "Tell me, was it you? Officer, how could it be me? My hands are still cuffed." Zhang Feiyu gestured with his cuffed hands, a smirk playing on his lips. "Think this is funny?" Ling Xuanja kicked Zhang Feiyu twice and slapped him across the face. The surrounding law enforcers quickly pulled her back. "Sister Ling, he is not worth getting punished over." Only then did Ling Xuanja stop, her previously angry expression smoothing over in an instant. She even wore a slight smile. "Zhang Feiyu, good thing I already uploaded the video online. Go ahead and try blowing up Tencent's servers if you dare." Ling Xuanja breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, those two girls had suggested uploading the video online as a precaution against Zhang Feiyu using some method to destroy the recording equipment. Initially, Ling Xuanja had not thought it necessary, since Zhang Feiyu was under law enforcement control with silver handcuffs securing his hands. How could he possibly pull anything off? But seeing how the two girls presented their case, it was clear they were repeating advice given to them by someone else. So she had uploaded the video just in case. And indeed, if not for those two high school girls' reminder, there would be no evidence left now. Zhang Feiyu was stunned, unable to comprehend why things had unfolded this way. "Then why did you hit me just now?" "So I would have an excuse to beat you up." Ling Xuanja sneered and made a little fist, clearly pleased with having roughed Zhang Feiyu up. How dare he speak ill of Gu Junqing? A single beating was not nearly enough. Ling Xuanja snorted coldly, wanting to hit him again, but thinking of potential punishment, she held back. "All right, stop gawking. Take him back." Basking in the somewhat admiring looks from the surrounding law enforcers, Ling Xuanja preened like a proud female zhejiang. Ding. Detected someone uploaded evidence of host initiating assault online. Mission failed. Ding, however, in recognition of host's successful bragging behavior by destroying recording equipment, reward 5,000 bragging points. Hearing the system's notification in his mind, the fury in Zhang Feiyu's eyes threatened to erupt. He had been so close to earning the 10,000 bragging points reward. Though he got 5,000, it still fell short of what he needed to exchange for the great reviving pill. When it came to someone preventing him from restoring his male capabilities, Zhang Feiyu did not care whether she was his crush or not. He was determined to teach her a lesson. Just then, he felt the atmosphere around him tighten, as if something had locked onto him, rendering him unable to move. Zhang Feiyu struggled to lift his head and spotted a figure standing on a high slope not far away, staring at him with a faint, ambiguous smile. His gaze sharpened, and upon clearly seeing the person, his eyes widened in extreme shock. Gu Junqing, it's Gu Junqing. Chapter 166. Zhang Feiyu was locked in place by Gu Junqing's aura, as if any movement would provoke a fatal strike. He sensed the energy around Gu Junqing roiling like a blazing furnace, intense and scalding, yet restrained and poised, not yet unleashed. Gu Junqing watched him with a faint, ambiguous smile. Zhang Feiyu was horrified. He could not fathom how much stronger Gu Junqing was. His power seemed like an unfathomable abyss, bottomless and immeasurable. It was as if Gu Junqing were gazing down at him from the highest heavens, lofty and unattainable. His presence was divine, yet also sinister like a devil, unreachable and distant. Zhang Feiyu thought he was utterly outmatched, no match for him, not even for a single exchange. This was the only thought in his mind. He murmured to himself, asking if this was Gu Junqing's true strength. This was the suppression a high-level martial artist exerted over a lower-level one. It also highlighted how extraordinary the former protagonist of the invincible genre had been, able to defeat Xixue despite being of a lower rank, especially since she was no weakling herself. Standing beside Zhang Feiyu, Ling Xuanja raised an eyebrow. She thought she heard him muttering Gu Junqing's name. Just moments ago, she had felt all her muscles tense up, as if locked onto by some ferocious beast, putting her on high alert. This was muscle memory honed through years of investigative experience. Every time she had this feeling, her life was in grave danger. This instinct had saved her countless times. But then, just as suddenly, the sensation vanished. Clearly, Zhang Feiyu had intended to make a move earlier, but was stopped by someone. Ling Xuanja felt a wave of relief. Given how Zhang Feiyu had effortlessly sliced the recording device in half earlier, dealing with her would likely have been just as easy. Following his gaze, she saw only a blurry silhouette in the distance, unable to make out any features. A lone figure stood there, watching them like a transcendent immortal, aloof and detached, looking down upon the mortal world. Though she could not see who it was, her heart inexplicably raced with excitement, fluttering uncontrollably. She knew it had to be Gu Junqing. Only when encountering him would her heart defy her control, beating wildly like this. Ling Xuanja felt like she was at a concert, Even from afar, and unable to see him clearly, it still made her heart surge with exhilaration, like an adoring fan. She thought she saw the distant figure wave at her before turning to leave. Ling Xuanja took 2 steps forward, as if yearning to chase after the sun in her heart. Meanwhile, Zhang Feiya continued muttering to himself, wondering if he could really defeat him, calling him terrifying. Ling Xuanja caught only these few words and looked at him with scorn. She told him that with his abilities, he could train for a lifetime and still never catch up to Gu Junqing. But Zhang Feiya ignored her, lost in his own thoughts. Ling Xuanja did not dare act impulsively now. Having just experienced what felt like a life-or-death crisis, she was cautious not to provoke Zhang Feiya further. She instructed her team to tie up his entire arm, not letting him move it an inch. She ordered them to bind his legs too, and make sure everything was secured tightly. After instructing the other law enforcers, she paused briefly before deciding to chase after the figure she had long dreamed of. Her heart swelled with excitement. The person she admired was not just outstanding in character and academics, with knowledge, integrity, and family background all at the pinnacle, but his strength was also unfathomable. Hadn't a mere distant glance from him just now rendered the previously arrogant Zhang Feiya completely unable to act recklessly? She ordered her team to take him back first. They were to detain him with extreme caution in the highest-level secure room, and follow standard procedures for everything else. Ling Xuanja stepped into an arriving enforcement vehicle, executed a sharp drift, and sped off. The remaining law enforcers exchanged bewildered glances, unsure of what had just happened. Nevertheless, they proceeded to carry out Ling Xuanja's orders. Fortunately, Zhang Feiya remained dazed, deeply shaken by Gu Junqing's display of power. He had thought his own strength was nearly on par with Gu Junqing's, only to realize the gap between them was still immense. Ling Xuanja drove swiftly to where Gu Junqing had been moments earlier, but his car was already far in the distance. She stepped out of her vehicle and stamped her foot in clear disappointment at having missed him. Noticing that Gu Junqing's car matched the one following the 2 young girls from earlier, she realized the recording equipment and other evidence, along with the carrying messages, had all been arranged by him. A warmth spread through Ling Xuanja's heart. She stood up and waved toward the distant car, as if saying they would meet again. Her sharp eyes, however, caught something on the ground. Kneeling down, she found a note weighed down by a small stone. Picking it up, she read the words, "Officer Ling, until next time." Her eyes lit up. She wondered if he knew her name. She questioned if Gu Junqing remembered her, and had made an effort to learn about her. Overcome with excitement, Ling Xuanja momentarily forgot her professional composure as a police enforcer, hopping gleefully like a young girl, even bouncing twice on the spot. In that moment, she felt as if the people and surroundings around her faded into a monochrome silent film, mere background noise, while the entire world narrowed down to that one person, his features exquisitely painted, his presence profound as the ocean. So consumed by her feelings, she cared not for dignity, her heart overflowing with joy solely for him. Clutching the small note happily, Ling Xuanja felt certain she would treasure it forever. Passers-by watched the female cop behaving like an ecstatic child, but hesitated to approach, deterred by the authority her uniform commanded. Meanwhile, Gu Junqing observed Ling Xuanja's reaction through his rearview mirror, a faint smile playing on his lips. A chime sounded in his mind, indicating that the female lead Ling Xuanja's favorability toward him had increased by 20 points, reaching 60, which was marked as aberration. This earned him a reward of 4,000 villain points. He thought to himself about his charm. He admitted his looks were hard to resist, but wondered if Ling Xuanja could try to control herself a little. Gu Junqing chuckled softly, finding her behavior undeniably delightful. He felt another piece settle into place within his heart. But there was no helping it. If a prime minister's heart is big enough to pull a boat in, why could Gu Junqing's heart not accommodate a few more women? The heavens must have known that he had lacked love since childhood, so they sent so many understanding elder sisters and caring younger sisters to look after him. It seemed the heavens were not entirely useless. With so many dear daughters, he would not stand on ceremony then. A smile played on Gu Junqing's face as he pondered. Truly worthy of being that scoundrel Gu Junqing. His shamelessness was simply unbearable. Outside Gu Junqing's car, 2 low rumbles of thunder echoed, clearly venting their displeasure. Chapter 167. Gu Junqing was driving with Mirong Wan and Luo Ningyu in the car. The scenery outside flew past as the 2 girls chattered away in the back seat, with Gu Junqing occasionally chiming in. Suddenly, they mentioned that the new year was approaching. Gu Junqing raised an eyebrow. Gu Junqing slammed on the brakes abruptly. The 2 girls lurched forward and hit the back of the front seats. What is wrong? Mirong Wan rubbed her chest. She was not as well endowed as Luo Ningyu, so the impact caused her some pain. Gu Junqing often joked that if Luo Ningyu were driving, she would not even need an airbag. I just remembered, today seems to be Lin King's birthday. He sighed and added, if you had not mentioned the new year, I would have completely forgotten. Gu Junqing massaged his forehead in frustration, feeling embarrassed by his oversight. You are such an irresponsible brother. Let us hurry and buy her a gift. Mirong Wan and Luo Ningyu spoke in unison. They adored Lin Qingzhou as a younger sister. Her beauty and background evoked their sympathy. Gu Junqing had been preoccupied with various matters lately. He had not paid much attention to Lin Qingzhou or Shi Hanyan. Fortunately, he remembered now. Otherwise, Lin Qingzhou would have been heartbroken. Gu Junqing was essentially her only family left. If even he forgot, no one else would remember. Moreover, Lin Qingzu had become quiet and timid because of Lin Tian. It had taken Gu Junqing a long time to help her regain some confidence. That was why he had found her a companion. If he had truly forgotten, the poor girl would have reverted to her pitiable state. The thought weighed heavily on Gu Junqing's heart. He quickly started the car and sped toward home. While driving, Gu Junqing asked the two girls for suggestions. Wanner, Ningyu, do you have any ideas on how to celebrate her birthday? Although Gu Junqing was known as a lady killer, capable of charming both young girls and mature women, a young girl's heart was as delicate as poetry. Ensuring Lin Qingzu's utmost satisfaction was crucial. Nirong and Luo Ningyu, having more experience in such matters, could offer valuable insights into understanding Lin Qingzu's preferences. How about setting off fireworks? I still remember that grand fireworks display last time. Rumor has it that almost all the fireworks in Luodu were bought up for it, and the scene is still vivid in her mind. Luo Ningyu's eyes sparkled as if reflecting the brilliance of fireworks. Resting her chin in her hands, she swung her feet gently, clearly still enchanted by the memory of that spectacular display. I remember that fireworks show too. It was recorded and even won a major award. No one knows who prepared such a breathtaking surprise just to bring a smile to someone's face. Nirong chimed in as well. She had also adored that grand fireworks display, which seemed to envelop the entire city of Luodu. It was the first time she had witnessed such a magnificent scene. May I be like the stars and you like the moon, shining brightly together every night. Gu Junqing twitched his lips slightly, not daring to admit that he had orchestrated that fireworks display to win Jizuyu's favor. If he did, all his romantic interests would likely pester him for similar treatment. Still, fireworks might not be a bad idea after all. Gu Junqing pondered the possibility. Nirong remarked, it does not seem suitable as a birthday gift, especially since there was that spectacular fireworks display before. She felt that once there was a precedent, it would lose that sense of mystery and surprise. After all, that grand fireworks display had left too deep an impression on the people of Luodu. Many suspected it was some overbearing CEO's meticulously planned gift to win over his beloved. However, this also created a standard of comparison for the men of Luodu. Whenever they prepared wedding or birthday gifts, they would inevitably measure them against that spectacular fireworks display. Without comparison, there would be no sense of inadequacy. That period became a time of intense competition among Luodu's men, where each man silently shed tears, but had no choice but to work harder. Gu Junqing thought Nirong made a valid point. He did not want to stage another such grand fireworks display, as the entire stock of fireworks in Luodu would surely be insufficient. They would probably have to purchase from other states, as Luodu's fireworks inventory still had not been fully replenished. Ningyu, do you have any suggestions? Gu Junqing asked. Junqing Gaig, what is the most important thing to Lin Qingzu? Luo Ningyu chuckled mysteriously. Gu Junqing raised an eyebrow, puzzled. What is it? It is obviously you, Junqing Gaig. You are the most important person to Lin Qingzu now. Luo Ningyu giggled softly. Junqing Gaig, why do you not sacrifice yourself and offer yourself to Lin Qingzu? Gu Junqing's heart stirred as he recalled moments shared with Lin Qingzu. He thought of her in the bunny girl outfit, which was reminiscent of a famous anime character. With an air of righteous solemnity, Gu Junqing declared, in that case, this old man can only offer up his body. Ugh, I am calling the police. Luo Ningyu and Nirong both covered their mouths and laughed. Meanwhile, back at the Gu family residence, Lin Qingzu was chatting idly with Shi Hanyan. Do not worry, Junqing Gaig will be back, Shi Hanyan comforted her. Ever since Gu Junqing had asked her to call him that, she had addressed him that way. Humph, he must have forgotten about me, Lin Qingzu grumbled. She grew more upset until tears began welling in her eyes. How could that be? You know what Junqing Gaig is like, do you not? Humph, I feel like he dotes on you the most and likes you best. That is why I get a little jealous and always compete with you for Junqing Gaig's affection. Shi Hanyan gently patted Lin Qingzu's head. Although she sometimes envied the affection Lin Qingzu received, she genuinely liked her personality. Lin Qingzu never acted spoiled or arrogant, and she often helped the servants with tasks. She usually went about her own business quietly, without any airs of being Gu Junqing's sister. The servants living there all adored Lin Qingzu. Her background evoked sympathy, leading everyone to treat her like a little sister. Chapter 168. Gu Junqing was worried about how to surprise Lin Qingzu. Lin Qingzu had given her heart entirely to him, and she was naturally sensitive. If Gu Junqing truly forgot her birthday, she would likely be far more devastated than most people. Luo Ningyu thought for a moment before speaking slowly. She put herself in Lin Qingzu's shoes. In truth, he did not need to prepare any elaborate surprises. He just needed to appear in front of her. Nirong nodded in agreement. Gu Junqing nodded slowly. Even so, he still had to prepare a gift. If he wanted to settle the heart of his little girl, Lin Qingzu, something with special meaning was clearly the best choice. Gu Junqing's eyes lit up, and a smile slowly spread across his face. He knew exactly what to give her. Luxury cars roared down the road. Although it was rush hour, and the road seemed congested, vehicles parted wherever Gu Junqing drove. After all, whether it was a luxury car worth millions or a conspicuous license plate, people did not dare to provoke him. Gu Junqing drove back to the Gu family estate. The estate occupied a massive area, and the wing where Gu Junqing lived was separate from the main house where his father resided. It was the first time Nirong and Luo Ningyu had come to Gu Junqing's home. They were immediately stunned by the sight before them. The hall was breathtakingly luxurious, filled with complex, cold lighting and soft, plush carpets. The high walls, romantic yet solemn temperament, grand foyer, round arched windows, and corner stonework all displayed grace and splendor. They knew Gu Junqing was wealthy, and the Gu family was famous throughout Luo. However, their imaginations could not grasp the sheer scale of his riches. To sum it up in one sentence, poverty limited their imagination. Gu Junqing walked to the living room and did not find Lin Qingzu or Shi Hanyan, so he guessed they were likely in his room. He summoned the old housekeeper to inquire. He asked if Qingzu and Hanyan were upstairs. The old housekeeper nodded. He explained that Miss Qingzu and Miss Hanyan had not come down to eat today, and they had left orders to be notified if the young master returned. Gu Junqing pondered for a moment. He told the housekeeper to prepare for a birthday party, as today was Lin Qingzu's birthday. The old housekeeper was shocked, as he did not know it was her birthday. He apologized profusely for the oversight. Gu Junqing waved his hand, indicating it was not a problem. He admitted it was his own fault for forgetting to tell him. The old housekeeper acknowledged the instructions. However, as he passed Gu Junqing, he whispered to him. He asked if he should inform the master about the two ladies accompanying him home. After speaking, the old housekeeper gestured toward Mirongwan and Luo Ningyu with a curious expression. He felt that one of these two girls might eventually become the young mistress. Mirongwan in particular had a dignified and beautiful appearance that was well suited for the position of a young mistress. Her elegant temperament complemented Gu Junqing perfectly. The other woman was also lovely, being delicate and cute. The housekeeper secretly pondered the characteristics of the two women, comparing who could be the young mistress of the family in the future. As for whether the young master was being reckless, he did not care. The young master was attractive enough to seduce any girl, so it was not surprising that he would bring someone home one day. Everyone in the Gu family knew the young master liked his teacher, but they did not dare to speak about it in front of him. Gu Junqing shook his head, declining the suggestion. Seeing his parents was not something to be done easily, or his fish pond might be overturned by the variety of fish he kept. He did not want to cause a fire in his harem, and women's jealousy was not easy to eliminate. Although the heroines were devoted to Gu Junqing, they did not necessarily feel the same way toward other women. One must know that even in a 4-person girls' dormitory, 10 group chats might be established regarding their relationships. Fortunately, very few of the women Gu Junqing flirted with were currently jealous of each other. At most, there were just some quarrels between the heroines fighting for Gu Junqing, so his harem remained at peace. If any future heroine possessed superior force and wanted to dominate Gu Junqing, the others would be unable to fight her. Therefore, Gu Junqing planned to put this career aside for the future and slowly cultivate the strength of each heroine, so they were evenly matched. Only when no one could threaten anyone else could he proceed slowly. He paid great attention to detail, and he had to understand every heroine clearly. The old housekeeper acknowledged this and left to prepare dinner. Gu Junqing took Mirongwan and Luo Ningyu to Lin Qingzu's door and knocked. He deliberately changed his voice. He said that he was calling to say it was dinner time. A voice came from inside. Lin Qingzu sounded lost as she said she did not want to eat. Gu Junqing continued his ruse. He claimed that Master Gu had called back to say he would not return for dinner, so he asked the lady to eat well. A frustrated cry came from inside. Lin Qingzu exclaimed that she would bite that big bastard to death. Gu Junqing laughed to himself. He could imagine Lin Qingzu baring her teeth and claws inside. While amused, he felt his responsibility increase. These heroines were all wholeheartedly dependent on him. If he failed in his future struggle against the protagonist, what would happen to them? Gu Junqing sighed in his heart. He truly was a responsible and good man, and it was no wonder the heroines could not control themselves when they saw him. His mother was right. Women in society were dangerous, and he had to protect his body. Gu Junqing stopped teasing Lin Qingzu. He announced that the big bastard was back, and told her to come out to eat. He felt the room go quiet for a moment. Then, he heard the sound of panicked footsteps. Lin Qingzu quickly ran out and opened the door for Gu Junqing. She leaped into his arms, tears streaming down her face. Gu Junqing quickly caught her and held her little buttocks to prevent her from falling. Lin Qingzu took advantage of the situation and clamped her legs around Gu Junqing's waist. She buried her face in his neck, sobbing. She clearly missed Gu Junqing very much. Chapter 169. Gu Junqing held Lin Qingzu skillfully, his palms gently soothing her hair. She clung to him like a koala. Brother Junqing, you finally remembered to come back. Lin Qingzu sobbed, her tone accusing. How could I miss the little princess's birthday? Gu Junqing replied with a comforting smile, patting her back to calm her sobs. Suddenly, 2 gazes made him freeze. He glanced over and saw Mirongwan and Luo Ningyu watching him with strange expressions. They knew Lin Qingzu relied on him, but they had not expected their relationship to be quite this intimate. Luo Ningyu pulled out her phone and mimed dialing a number, pointing at him with an expression that clearly said she was calling the police. Gu Junqing rolled his eyes, ignoring the gesture. Luo Ningyu just snickered in response. Only then did Lin Qingzu realize Mirongwan and Luo Ningyu were still there. She pulled away, her face flushing crimson with embarrassment. Sister Mirong, Sister Luo, you are here too. She wiped the tears from her eyes and greeted them shyly. Yes, Junqing specifically invited us here to help celebrate your birthday. Mirongwan smiled warmly. Although they were not much older than Lin Qingzu, they felt deep sympathy for the girl's difficult upbringing. She had almost no one to rely on besides Gu Junqing. Mirongwon refrained from mentioning that Gu Junqing had almost forgotten the birthday until they were on the way home. She did not want to make the girl sad again. After speaking, Mirongwon shot a glare at Gu Junqing. His carelessness had almost hurt the sensitive girl deeply. If a husband forgets an anniversary, his wife is inevitably hurt. That was the same principle here. My little princess, stop being sad now. Gu Junqing touched her head and breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, he had coordinated with Mirongwon and Luodu to smooth things over. A white lie was better than a painful truth. I am not that easy to forgive. Lin Qingzu huffed, turning her head away to hide her face. She had been looking forward to this all day, wondering what surprise her brother would have in store. She had not expected him to show up so late in the evening. Gu Junqing felt helpless, but he knew he had truly forgotten. He could not exactly explain his busy schedule in front of everyone else. After all, he had just engaged in such an intimate hug that Luodu was joking about calling the authorities. She was still too young to understand, he thought with a mental sigh. After today, Lin Qingzu would officially be a teenager, though marriage was clearly not on the table. Luodu looked at him with a mischievous, mocking smile. She stepped forward and whispered into his ear. You are really something else, Brother Junqing. Sister Qingzu is at the age where she is falling in love for the first time, and she is completely focused on you. Gu Junqing glanced at her, sensing the girl was becoming increasingly bold. He would make sure she learned her lesson one day. He chose to ignore her for now and turned his attention back to appeasing Lin Qingzu. Are you still angry, really? Look at this. Gu Junqing pulled out his phone and showed her his schedule. As a master of time management, he naturally kept a log. Of course, he had modified it heavily before showing it to her. He could not exactly tell her he had spent the day with other women. For a younger girl, it was better to keep some details private. Lin Qingzu saw how full his schedule was and slowly began to forgive him. She turned her resentment into pity for his exhaustion. Brother Junqing, I am sorry. You are so busy and still came back to celebrate with me. She lowered her head, feeling guilty. Her brother was not like her. He worked hard every day and still rushed back to see her. Her resentment vanished completely. Mirongwon and Luodu gave him a thumbs up, surprised by how easily she had forgiven him. What they did not know was what Lin Qingzu was thinking internally. She knew that bringing Mirongwon and Luodu home was an opportunity for them, and she did not want to look petty or unreasonable. Because of that logic, she could easily overlook his tardiness. Brother Junqing is so busy every day, and his sisters do not help him at all. Unlike me, I only know how to care for him. She whispered this into his ear, where Mirongwon and Luodu could not hear. Gu Junqing felt a little stiff. The tea-like manipulation in her voice was almost too much for him to handle. Despite her schemes, she genuinely liked the other two women. They were the ones who had comforted her when she was timid and shy at the restaurant. Friendship was friendship, but romance was a different matter. Gu Junqing still belonged to her in her mind. As his sister, she had to look after him and ensure his heart was not stolen by outsiders. She was the first to live in his house, and she intended to keep it that way. Shi Hanyan had told her that Brother Junqing loved her the most, which was why she was willing to be so compassionate and forgive him. Chapter 170. Brother Junqing, you're back. The harmonious atmosphere among the three women and one man was suddenly interrupted by another female voice. Shi Hanyan approached with a surprised expression and took Gu Junqing's hand. After Gu Junqing treated her, her legs had regained the ability to walk normally. Although she could not jump around like a normal person, she was already very satisfied, especially since she previously could not even stand. Her feelings for Gu Junqing deepened as a result. Her life had reached a turning point the moment she met Gu Junqing. Her parents were living well, and she heard that her father's condition had improved significantly. The miserable first half of her life was finally moving in a better direction. She had also made a close friend in Lin Qingzu, despite their frequent quarrels over Gu Junqing. In truth, they deeply cherished each other as good friends. Mirongwon and Luodu's expressions shifted entirely. They had only known that Lin Qingzu lived with Gu Junqing and considered him her brother. They were aware of Lin Qingzu and suspected the girl harbored feelings for Gu Junqing. After all, youthful infatuation was inevitable, especially with a man like Gu Junqing constantly by her side. However, they had not expected to find another stunning beauty beside Gu Junqing. They had been completely unaware of Shi Hanyan, as Gu Junqing had kept her existence a secret. Gu Junqing felt a headache coming on as he watched Mirongwon and Luodu offer forced, tight-lipped smiles. How was he supposed to explain Shi Hanyan's presence? He could hardly tell them that he had taken a fancy to her beauty and essentially claimed her as his own. Or should he say that he simply felt pity for her family situation and decided to house her? The situation was too delicate to explain, and Gu Junqing found himself in a tight spot. Junqing, won't you introduce this sister to us? Mirongwon asked with a gentle smile, though her tone carried the sharp edge of a woman who had just discovered her husband keeping a mistress. Luodu immediately supported Mirongwon. The two of them were always in perfect sync. Oh, does this sister have some advice for me? Brother Junqing, you should introduce her to me as well. Shi Hanyan did not panic, instead nimbly deflecting the pressure back onto Gu Junqing. Gu Junqing felt another headache brewing as he looked at the four women staring intently at him. How was he supposed to explain this? Had his recent exertions really dulled his wits? It was a sloppy move to bring them all together. Just as Gu Junqing found himself in a dilemma, the old housekeeper arrived upstairs at the perfect moment. He observed the 4 women squaring off on either side of his young master, and noted the tense atmosphere. "Master, dinner has been arranged, and you may head downstairs to eat." The old housekeeper coughed, effectively breaking the spell between the 4 girls, before a real conflict could erupt. "The young master is certainly bold." The old housekeeper offered a silent prayer for Gu Junqing. Scenes like this never happened with the previous generation of the Gu family. After all, Gu Junqing's father was under the strict rule of his wife, Xie Ying, who never permitted any dalliances. However, Xie Ying enthusiastically supported Gu Junqing finding multiple daughters-in-law, showcasing her mastery of double standards. Gu Junqing secretly gave the old housekeeper a thumbs up, projecting the authority of the household head. "Let us go celebrate King's birthday first, and I will introduce you to each other later." He silently added that there would be no future introductions. Lin King's chimed in to help. Yes, let us eat first, and I will introduce everyone properly." Mirong and Shi Hanyan both had good relationships with Lin Kingzu. After Lin Kingzu spoke, Mirong and Shi Hanyan softened their stances, becoming more civil. Gu Junqing's eyes lit up as he mentally noted Lin Kingzu's skills at managing this tense situation. Gu Junqing, who usually prided himself on his resourcefulness, had failed to devise a strategy to manage them. He realized he simply needed to find a point of equilibrium to keep the situation under control. Lin Kingzu was clearly the balance point he needed. He could use her to navigate these tense scenarios in the future. The number of women in his life was growing, so he had to manage them carefully to prevent any conflicts. Lin Kingzu took Mirong Wan's hand on her left and Shi Hanyan's on her right, leading them downstairs. Gu Junqing glanced at Luo Ningyu and motioned for her to take his arm. Luo Ningyu snorted, ignored him, and stepped forward to hold Mirong Wan's hand instead. The 4 women walked down the stairs together. It is truly wise to say that 1 monk carries water, 2 share it, and 3 go thirsty. The ancestors clearly studied this dynamic thoroughly. To balance their harems and maintain their own vitality, the emperors of old adopted the practice of rotating partners. Gu Junqing mused over the wisdom of his ancestors and vowed to study it diligently. He felt that since no one else was suffering, he certainly shouldn't let his own brother suffer either. Saving the best for his younger brother was a lesson he had taken to heart. Gu Junqing shook his head and followed them to the dining room. Girls could be quite unpredictable. Gu Junqing was surprised to find that after a short while, the 4 of them were chatting and introducing themselves amiably, relieving the tension. Gu Junqing breathed a sigh of relief, reflecting on how strange friendships could be, whether among boys who reconciled after a fight, or girls who bonded so quickly. He wondered how they could become as close as sisters in such a short period. They had been in a confrontation just moments ago, eyeing each other with suspicion. Yet, after just a few steps, they had made peace. He watched Lin Kingzu, who seemed to be working hard to mediate, and felt very pleased. Lin Kingzu clearly played a major role in keeping the peace. He mused internally about how good it would be to reward her later that night. However, Gu Junqing knew he could not be a complete beast. Since she was such an obedient girl, he felt it was only right to reward her properly. After all, good children deserve a reward. Chapter 171. Gu Junqing followed the 4 women into the restaurant. The servants he passed kept their heads down, but their eyes lingered on Gu Junqing with complex expressions when they dared to look up. They were captivated by the sight of these 4 beautiful, refined women all revolving around their young master. Gu Junqing tried to hide his slight embarrassment with a smile. He was fortunate to be at home, as this scene would surely attract unwanted attention on the street. The old housekeeper, who had been waiting at the entrance, leaned in to whisper to Gu Junqing. He informed him that everything had been arranged and the dishes would be served shortly. Gu Junqing nodded and walked inside. He was surprised to find that the dining table had been replaced with a long, rectangular Western-style table. He usually dined on a smaller, warmer round table when at home, reserving larger setups for social functions at his father's estate. However, the old housekeeper's intention became clear immediately. He had clearly replaced the table to prevent the women from fighting for the seat closest to Gu Junqing. It was a clever way to avoid an immediate confrontation. Gu Junqing silently praised the old man for being as shrewd as a seasoned veteran. He felt quite content watching the 4 girls acting so harmoniously. As for the future, he did not know if he could manage things once more women joined the fray, but he was happy for now. He did not view his behavior as mere philandering, especially in a world infused with so many urban novel tropes. Here, the powerful were everywhere and protagonists were as common as stray dogs. He had to secure the heroines as quickly as possible. If he missed his opportunity, these women would likely be snatched up by other protagonists to eventually turn against him. Gu Junqing was not a fool, so he chose to strike first and win them all over. He told himself he simply wanted to give these heroines a home and soothe their lonely bodies and hearts. He caught Lin King's eye and winked at her. She understood immediately and flashed him a smile. She turned back to the others, acting cute and cheerful. She had remembered advice from a video which said she should give her man face when in the presence of outsiders. Shi Hanyan realized exactly what Lin Kingza was thinking. She felt a bit disappointed, as she had considered them close friends, yet Lin Kingza clearly saw her as an outsider. Once the 3 other women saw Lin Kingza being so pure and sweet, they began to chat tentatively. The dining table finally started to liven up. Gu Junqing breathed a sigh of relief, happy to see the mood shifting away from depression. He was confident he could handle this. He had prepared for this, and he was certain his heroines would learn to get along. He was only human, after all, and he knew his own limitations. Even the most legendary masters of time management eventually slipped up, so he had to be careful. Moreover, the heroines he was flirting with were not simple women, and they would not be easily deceived. The current gathering of 4 student heroines was just a small, preliminary exercise. He was confident that a disaster could be avoided for now. First, these women were young and lacked experience, so they would not be able to escalate things too far yet. Second, their personalities were relatively indifferent rather than possessive. Mirongwon was aloof and serious, Shi Hanyan was quiet and delicate, while Lin Qingzu and Luo Ningyu were both cute and possessed a mischievous streak. They would not resort to dirty tactics, and their initial misunderstanding was simply a product of female nature. Look at how harmonious the scene was now. Mirongwon smiled and asked tactfully why Shi Hanyan was living in the house. Shi Hanyan explained that her legs were inconvenient and required treatment from Gu Junqing, so he allowed her to stay for her own good. She then looked at Gu Junqing with deep affection. Gu Junqing ate in silence, waiting for the two sides to make their moves. He felt like a seasoned gamer waiting for the perfect time to harvest the battlefield. Luo Ningyu interjected, pointing out that Shi Hanyan's legs seemed to have recovered well, and she likely did not need his help anymore. It was her way of telling Shi Hanyan to leave and stop pestering her Gu Junqing. Shi Hanyan insisted she was not fully cured, and still required Gu Junqing to massage and touch her legs. She deliberately emphasized the word touch to imply that the relationship between herself and Gu Junqing went beyond simple treatment. Gu Junqing wanted to cry out in protest. He was genuinely only treating her, and had not done anything extraordinary yet. Mirongwon and Luo Ningyu's expressions shifted instantly. They had initially thought it was pure medical treatment, but now they realized this woman had ulterior motives, and was using her beauty to tempt Gu Junqing. The harmony dissolved as the situation grew tense. Gu Junqing observed that Mirongwon and Luo Ningyu were teaming up, using their numbers to pressure the other. It reminded him of other situations where heroines tried to recruit allies, unaware that it only resulted in his own benefit. He fondly recalled his own experiences with other women, noting how their bodies and personalities differed. Lin Qingzu, however, decided not to participate in the petty bickering. She focused on the food, having learned how to work quietly in the background. Chapter 172. Lin Qingzu stood up, stretched her slender arms with difficulty, picked up some vegetables, and placed them into Gu Junqing's bowl. Seeing this, the other 3 women stopped their standoff and learned to pick up dishes for Gu Junqing as well. Everyone pretended to be the perfect wife and mother, refusing to be outdone. Gu Junqing was helpless. As he watched the food pile up like a mountain, he quickly asked them to stop. Only then did the women pull back and cease their competition. Gu Junqing found himself wondering how Wei Xiaobao managed his 7 wives while maintaining such control. After thinking for a moment, he attributed it to Wei Xiaobao's exceptional stamina and mastery of his craft. Of course, the time period also played a role. Wei Xiaobao lived in a feudal era where polygamy was the norm. The world Gu Junqing occupied was different, though it did not explicitly mandate monogamy. Whether due to modern social progress or technological advancement, monogamy remained the standard. Therefore, Gu Junqing knew he had to work harder than Wei Xiaobao. If he wanted all his heroines to be convinced, he needed both physical strength and exceptional charisma. Lin Qingzu watched the tension play out with a smile on her face. It was as if her conspiracy had succeeded, and her eyes curved into crescent moons. She did it on purpose, knowing brother Junqing would be annoyed by their competition. She wanted to contrast herself with them, acting as the good baby, who only felt sorry for her brother. It was obvious who he would choose in the end. 3 women and 1 play, and she was the director. She thought of herself as Director Lin from now on. Gu Junqing found her too cute. He saw through her careful thoughts, but played along since it was her birthday. He had discussed with the others how to make her truly happy. Only by treating her well could they slowly eliminate her grievances. It was easy to heal after an injury, but the scars could linger. Gu Junqing checked his watch, knowing Lin Qingzu was a fan of a female singer who had become popular recently. He had specially invited the singer to perform a few songs for Lin Qingzu. He thought to himself that she should be arriving soon. Su Chen was annoyed because her manager had booked another job for her just as she was about to take a break. She threw a bit of a tantrum. Her manager spoke bitterly to her. She reminded Su Chen that she had only recently been unbanned, and that her current gigs were thanks to a few successful songs. Su Chen looked cold and beautiful, curling her lips. She disliked the arrangements her manager made. She figured her current popularity meant the company could no longer hide her. She decided she would do things on her own. Su Chen had a face like a fallen angel, but she hated using it to get ahead. She preferred to rely on her talent. The company had hidden her because she refused their commercialization plans. However, Su Chen was stubborn by nature. She had secretly posted songs she wrote online, and became popular on the internet. Now, she was no longer a transparent figure. The company had wanted to suppress her, but they were forced to let her go due to internet and social pressure. This allowed her to be active on the internet and television once again. Her manager wondered why she did not cherish these opportunities. If Su Chen had accepted the company's arrangements, she would have been famous long ago. Her manager told her that she would not force her. However, she insisted that Su Chen go to this appointment tonight. She simply had to sing a few songs, and nothing more was required of her. Su Chen asked why she had to go, suggesting she could just tell the company leaders to ban her again, and see if she could rise up once more. She was full of disdain. The manager shook her head with a wry smile. She told Su Chen that this target was not simple, and had specifically requested her. It was no longer something the company could control. The manager explained that if she did not go, the company might collapse tomorrow. She warned Su Chen that if the company fell, she would have no refuge. Even if she tried to post songs online, she would be blacklisted everywhere. Su Chen turned her head, her face full of surprise. She asked if the manager was lying to her again, noting that their company was the largest film and television firm in Luodu. The manager shook her head and insisted she never lied. She explained that this request came from the Gu family, the top family in Luodu. The Gu family had specifically asked for her to perform. They said a little princess of the Gu family liked her very much. To celebrate her birthday, the Gu family wanted her to sing birthday songs and prepare a surprise. The manager's words made Su Anji's face turn pale. She had heard of the mysterious Gu family. She recalled company meetings where the boss mentioned his cooperation with the Gu family. It seemed that this connection was why the company had become a leader in Luodu. Other companies faced bans, but the Gu family gave this company a green light. Su Anji had yearned for such influence, as people at her level rarely encountered it. Hearing that the Gu family had asked for her made her hesitate. She knew that if the Gu family took action against her, she would never have a chance to recover. Chapter 173. Su Anji looked conflicted about whether she should care for her family. At this moment, her manager started talking again. The order came from the highest level of the company. The fate of the firm is in your hands. If you agree, your future journey might not be supreme, but it will certainly be smooth. The company will restrict its resources to you. Even if you establish a relationship with the Gu family, your future will not be limited to your current popularity. You will have opportunities across the country, and perhaps even the world. The manager tried her best to persuade her this time. She knew that if Su Anji refused, she would be finished, but she still did not want to force her. At worst, she would fall into the bottomless abyss alongside Su Anji. The bond between them was a two-way journey, and they never left each other behind. Su Anji hesitated. Although she had only sung a song, she had a history of refusing to bow to the powerful. If she went now, would that previous resolve be in vain? Su Anji felt aggrieved, thinking about those damn capitalists and their evil ways. If you go tonight, the Gu family will offer you 10 million. Do you know how much 10 million is? That is a massive sum of money. It only takes others one day to perform a full play, but you only need to sing a few songs to earn 5 times that much. After listening to her manager, Su Anji immediately sat upright with a serious expression. Where is the address for the Gu family? I will be late if I do not go now. The manager's words completely defeated Su Anji's defenses. Money was her weakness, and if she hadn't been desperate for cash, she never would have returned to this company. The price paid by the Gu family was truly tempting. Her heart was moved. Su Anji hesitated, then picked up the phone and dialed a number. Hey, is that brother Luodu? I have a gig tonight. Can I continue to use the songs you wrote? A pleasant male voice responded over the phone. It is fine. I said that I could not write songs, just play them, so you can use those tracks casually. Luodu spoke with a slightly pretentious tone. He knew that only in this way could he pique a girl's curiosity, appearing talented yet humble. He was used to being a total nobody in his previous life, so he could naturally grasp this opportunity to show off. But can I ask where you are going? It is so late, and I am worried that something might happen to you. At the other end of the line, Luodu felt an inexplicable sense of panic. It seemed difficult for him to see Su Anji again. It felt like Su Anji was walking down a fork in the road, and the direction she chose now was drifting away from him. That was why Luodu pressed for more information. He did not know why he had this strange feeling. Perhaps it was some sort of telepathy brought on by his transmigration. This left Luodu somewhat confused. I am fine. I am just going to sing a birthday song for a little girl, and Sister G is with me. Sister G was Su Anji's manager. Su Anji felt a spark of warmth when she heard Luodu caring about her. She had seen many dark corners in society, so she naturally felt favorably toward Luodu because of his chic, bright, and intellectual aura. When Luodu heard that Su Anji's manager would be accompanying her, he felt relieved. He had met Su Anji's manager, and knew that she was genuinely good to Su Anji, and would not harm her. Luodu hung up without saying anything more. He wanted to go outside and advertise more to see if he could recruit other female tenants who needed help like Su Anji. If he could not even start a harem after crossing into this world, he would be a disgrace to all the other transmigrators. Did that not discredit the many armies of transmigrators from his previous life? Luodu smiled and began to write some classic novels, songs, and even scripts from his previous life. These were his capital in this new world. In his previous life, he had been exploited by capitalists while working grueling hours, so he wanted to experience the happiness of being a capitalist in this life. Looking at the novel that had begun to take shape, Luodu felt very happy. He would definitely become popular in this world, and he might even become the godfather of the entertainment industry. Gu Junqing on the other side was also happy, though he was forced into it by Lin Qingzu. Nirongwan and Luo Ningyu had already been sent back by Gu Junqing after they finished eating. They knew about Gu Junqing's plan to ask Lin Qingzu to sing a song for her, but they were not interested in the star, and had no intention of staying. Their parents definitely would not agree to let them stay overnight. According to them, high school seniors should focus on studying, rather than socializing. When Gu Junqing heard their parents say this, he almost could not hold back his laughter. They were indeed the parents who could raise a heroine, as they were slightly different from normal people. However, Gu Junqing was very happy to let Nirongwan and Luo Ningyu go back. After all, although they were just acting for Lin Qingzu, they were pushing the boundaries. Mirongwan and Shi Hanyan had almost crossed the line with their fake displays of affection. There was no way to handle Gu Junqing's temptation toward the heroines, much like how the Tang monk tempted those female demons. They were all essence, handsome and delicious. As for what it tasted like, it is best understood than described. At this time, Gu Junqing and Lin Qingzu were in her room, and Shi Hanyan was taking a bath before joining them. Lin Qingzu walked barefoot on the expensive silk carpet, wearing a cute Lolita dress with pleats that reached her feet. Her slender waist was bound by a belt, making her figure look even more graceful. Coupled with her fair skin, Gu Junqing felt as if a princess from the Middle Ages was slowly walking toward him. Gu Junqing discovered that the little girl he had raised for so long had really grown up, and she was no longer the cute kitten-like person she was at the beginning. As for how to tell that she had grown up, her clothes were a witness. Gu Junqing felt proud and happy, like a father watching his girl grow up. He pondered when he had developed this fatherly mentality. Was it because he regarded Lin Qingzu as his wife, but was raising her like a daughter? Impossible, absolutely impossible. Had he, Gu Junqing, actually become a decent human being? No, was he not even worse than an animal? Gu Junqing fell into deep contemplation. Chapter 174. Because the food at the Gu estate was much better than before, Lin Qingzu's formerly thin face and body had gradually filled out. The awkwardness of her youth had faded, and her clothes finally fit her frame properly. She had a petite face and delicate features, with skin as fair and smooth as fresh goat milk. She possessed an ethereal beauty, her grace and elegance inherent in every movement. As she matured, her body had begun to develop alluring curves. With her hair cascading over her shoulders, she looked like an elf who had wandered into the human world. She exuded a natural, captivating charm. Watching Lin Qingzu attempt to display her beauty for him, Gu Junqing could not help but chuckle. Perhaps he had grown so accustomed to her previous, fragile appearance that he instinctively reacted with a smile. Lin Qingzu noticed the amusement in his eyes. Her initial attempt to appear seductive and mature quickly dissolved into frustration, signaled by an adorable pout. She abandoned the pretense of being an elegant woman and instead pounced on him like an angry kitten, swatting at him playfully. Gu Junqing could not suppress his laughter, which only fueled her annoyance. He feared she might trip, so he caught her, wrapping his arms around her slender waist to keep her steady. They tumbled onto the bed together. "Careful, you will fall," he said, patting her head. He secretly wondered why the singer had not arrived yet. If she did not appear soon, he might have to move his plans for the evening forward. "Who told you to laugh? Am I not pretty?" Lin Qingzu tried to push herself up, bracing her hands against his chest, while turning her face away in a huff. Her long, dark hair fell like a waterfall, some strands brushing against his face. Her beautiful face still held a mix of shyness and lingering anger. "My little bamboo, how could you not be pretty?" Gu Junqing replied with a helpless smile, his face tickled by her hair. "Really, if I look good, why will you not look at me? Qingzu, you are still young." Gu Junqing flicked her forehead. Being this small and trying to tempt him was an impossible task. He had a strong resolve, and would not be easily swayed by such innocent maneuvers. He prided himself on his self-control. "I am not young anymore. I will be an adult soon, and I can do many things. I can do everything those other women can do." Lin Qingzu glared at him as if she wanted to take a bite out of him. "Let us leave those treats for the future," he said, sitting up and stroking her soft hair gently. Even though he held her close and tried to comfort her, she remained unhappy. A servant knocked on the door. "Master, the person you invited has arrived." Gu Junqing frowned and glanced at the clock. The singer was significantly late. A cold light flashed in his eyes. If this singer was not a favorite of Lin Qingzu, he would have been thoroughly unimpressed. Since the guest was a minute late, he decided this would be her first and last performance. She could disappear from the public eye after tonight. "Let us go see the final surprise I have for you today," he said, taking Lin Qingzu's hand and smoothing out her wrinkled skirt. "Really? What kind of surprise?" Lin Qingzu asked, her excitement returning. She looked at him with clear, expectant eyes. "Guess," he teased. His mysterious tone made her tilt her head in thought as she tried to guess. Su Chen stood outside the Gu estate with her manager, staring at the manor in front of her. "Do rich people really live here? Sister Ji, tell me, is this really just a house? Isn't this a massive estate?" Her manager sighed, shaking her head. "I have never been here before. I only know this is the address the company provided." It is no wonder a third-tier singer would be willing to pay such a high price for a recommendation. Su Chen felt a wave of emotion. Her career had just started to improve. If it were not for the songs Luodu had written for her, she would likely still be languishing in obscurity. It was a miracle that she had become a third-tier, or even quasi-second-tier singer so quickly. She had already thanked Luodu with several dinners. "Hurry up, you are already running late," her manager urged, feeling helpless that Su Chen was still in the mood for jokes. As they reached the entrance, their car was stopped by a Gu family bodyguard. "Which one of you is Miss So?" "I am," Su Chen replied through the car window. "Then please follow us. The others are waiting for you in the living room." Su Chen hesitated for a moment, then looked at her outfit and agreed to follow. The estate was far more luxurious and imposing than she had imagined. It felt more like the residence of a high-ranking official than a private home. She pushed the thought aside and followed the guard inside. Sister Ji watched her go with a worried heart, silently praying that everything would go smoothly. In the past, meeting someone of the emperor's status was a terrifying prospect where a single mistake could cost one's entire family their lives. She felt a similar dread now. Their company leaders were waiting at home, terrified that Su Chen would offend the Gu family. Their entire operation relied on a tenuous connection to the Gu name. If the Gu family decided to retaliate, their company would collapse like a house of cards. Their current investors only provided funding because of the Gu family's influence. The boss sighed, hoping Su Chen would not be as stubborn as she usually was. If she clashed with the Gu family, they would be ruined. His young secretary asked if the Gu family's power was truly that terrifying, especially since their company was not publicly listed. The boss glared at her. You have long hair and short knowledge. What does it matter if a company is not listed? You know about the major corporations in the top 500, but do you know who the largest shareholder is? It is the Gu Enterprise. Their power is beyond anything you or I can imagine. Crushing us would be easier than stepping on an ant, the boss said. After he finished speaking, he crushed his cigarette butt and turned his attention to his young secretary, who still looked ignorant. Boss, what are you doing? She exclaimed. He could not wait any longer, and since he had nothing better to do, he decided to uphold the long-standing tradition of managers and their secretaries. Unaware of the panic unfolding at her agency, Su Chen simply focused on her performance, oblivious to the fact that her boss would spend the entire night waiting for news. Chapter 175. Su Chen followed the Gu family guard toward the main house. She was truly stunned by the scale of the place today. It was nearly indistinguishable from an ancient royal palace, and it was simply too large. Su Chen muttered the observation to herself. She asked the guard about the age of the estate. Su Chen had previously carried the pride of a rising star, accustomed to lavish, extravagant environments. But after stepping into the Gu estate, her sense of self-importance crumbled. Only now did she truly understand the meaning of real luxury. The guard glanced at her curious expression and offered a cryptic reply. Do you know why I am single now? The man looked melancholic. Su Chen was confused by the sudden shift in topic. Did the size of the estate have anything to do with his relationship status? She could only admit she did not know. He explained that he once had a girlfriend who worked as a domestic servant within the house. She broke up with him simply because she did not want to endure a long-distance relationship. The guard looked genuinely pained, still mourning the loss of love. It was true that a woman could affect a man's speed in life. Su Chen wiped sweat from her brow and forced an awkward laugh. She was at a loss for words. How could the estate be so massive that a breakup inside was categorized as a long-distance relationship? She stared at the guard's head, imagining a literal green light of betrayal shining there like a halo. She quickly averted her eyes and lowered her head, not daring to speak again. Everyone faced their own unique struggles. Empathy was rare, but personal discomfort was universal. This level of opulence was not surprising for someone like Gu Junqing. He had his own worries, often fretting over how to handle one heroine without upsetting the balance for the next. Women were like cigarettes in a man's hand. They were addictive, and without them, one felt an unbearable itch. Smoking too much hurt the body, but the biggest risk was that they were easily snatched away by others. The Gu estate was undeniably vast enough that the guard's excuse about a long-distance breakup almost sounded plausible. Su Chen thought about this silently as she walked. She eventually arrived at the performance area. The guard gestured toward the room. Miss Su, you can wait here, as the young master and young lady will arrive shortly. The guard then departed. Su Chen felt like a country bumpkin entering the big city. She poked at everything, curious and restless. Despite her professional ups and downs, she was still in her early 20s. Suddenly, Lin Qingzu entered the room. She stared at the woman who was skulking around like a thief, looking visibly confused. She was not afraid, as this was the Gu family estate, and no ordinary intruder could breach the defenses. Su Chen froze, her hand hovering over a microphone. She looked mortified. I am just testing the microphone. Su Chen offered a strange smile and turned toward her. She caught sight of the girl, and was stunned by her ethereal beauty. She looked like a fairy, and Su Chen felt her resolve to be professional crumbling. Lin Qingzu coughed, unimpressed by the reaction. Su Chen smiled sheepishly and wiped a bit of drool from her chin. She asked why the girl was there alone. Lin Qingzu explained that her brother had been called away suddenly, leaving her to handle the guest. Su Chen was curious about the brother, assuming this must be the Gu family's little princess. She breathed a sigh of relief. If the young master was not here, he would not see her disguise. Lin Qingzu studied Su Anji's face with a critical eye. She noted the heavy, hideous makeup. Why is she so ugly, and what kind of surprise is this? Su Anji had forgotten that she was intentionally wearing an ugly disguise to avoid unwanted attention from powerful men. She had applied large fake blemishes and a small, comical beard. Lin Qingzu could see she was a woman, but the effort was truly terrifying. Lin Qingzu wondered if her brother had terrible taste. Did he view ugliness as beauty, causing him to ignore her own charm? No, if that were true, he would not have pursued Mirongwan and Luodu. She had even privately asked those two if they had any intimate encounters with Gu Junqing. They had both denied it, and their physical cues confirmed they were telling the truth. She huffed internally. Her brother treated her like a child, but she was already wise to the ways of the world. She could tell at a glance if a man was interested in a woman. It was clear that her brother did not chase after young, beautiful girls in the traditional way. He seemed drawn to older, more mature women. She mused on the difference between a young woman and a lady who knew how to handle herself. Gu Junqing understood the world well. He saw experienced women as a treasure trove of knowledge. Lin Qingzu was too lost in her own thoughts to notice that Su Anji was growing visibly frustrated, her beard twitching with irritation. To be continued. Hope you liked today's video. Join the community by subscribing and dropping a like. I'll be back with another update as soon as possible. See you then.